Pirate's Most Powerful Villain, Chapter 501-520. Chapter 0501_Great Dominate. Destruction dominates Deathwing. Is it another dominant monster? Sifeng Yuan took a deep breath and blurted out, "That dragon." The turmoil between Deathwing and the masked army, no matter who it is, can find it at the first time, but I didn't expect it to be a fantasy monster. Did they want to destroy the city? Urahara Kazuki looked serious. Creating King Qi. The creation of Wang Jian requires 100,000 living souls in a land of heavy spirituality. Now Deathwing destroys the city and affects countless mortals. Now, I don't know how many people have died. Therefore, Urahara Kazuki's first reaction is to dream of creating Wang Jian. Wang Jian. Gilgamesh shook his head and said, "Other demons may be possible, but not Deathwing." "What do you mean?" Sifeng Yuan Yi asked. "You only know the Lord, but you don't know that Deathwing is different from the General Lord. He is a dragon that destroys the world, and his strength is far above the Lord. Its appearance means that it will bring a catastrophic catastrophe." Gilgamesh explained calmly. Among the many masters of the dream, there are 3 masters, whose strength is far beyond the ordinary masters. You can call them big masters. They are the Deathwing of the Destruction Master, and the Life Master Feng 15. And Yin and Yang dominate the 6 spots. Quote, "Great dominate." Urahara Kazuki was stunned, but he did not expect such a classification in the dream. The Master is already quite terrifying. How powerful is the Great Master above the Master? King Feng. Sifeng Yuan's expression froze at night. Remembering the scene where the other party healed him easily when he was in Xiao Lingting, I didn't expect that there were still 3 great masters in Dream. Ho Wang has already appeared, and Deathwing is now furious. In addition, there is a Yin and Yang master. Sifeng Yuan Yi couldn't help feeling sad. The combat power shown by this mysterious organization, Dream, was unbelievably strong. The whole soul world is tied together. I am afraid that it is difficult to defeat the 3 great masters. Suddenly, Kazuki Urahara thought of something and asked, "You know this, so who are you?" "I am the King of Heroes, Gilgamesh." "It's you." "This," Sifeng Yuan Yi said in surprise. "I heard Shui Sheng mention it. Some time ago, she was picked up by Shui Sheng to pet her, and she had heard the name of the King of Heroes at that time." "Where are you from?" She couldn't help asking. "Outside of Japan." In this regard, Gilgamesh ignored it, but flicked his fingers and controlled the going flying boat to fly in front of him. Then, he made a slight leap, jumped on the flying boat, and sat on the throne. "Are you going to deal with that dragon?" Urahara Kazuki Vivi frowned, not being able to study the going flying boat clearly, which made him very regretful. He's seen a lot of technology he's never seen before, and if he's given enough time, he can get a lot of useful stuff. "You think too much." Gilgamesh snorted softly and said, "Deathwing is the master. I advise you to run away. Of course, if you don't give up, you can go and see the power of the master." After speaking, he stopped talking, controlled the flying boat, and broke through this underground space in an instant. As soon as he left, Sifenjin Yaiki and Urahara Kazuki looked at each other. "Kazuki. What will happen to this world?" Urahara Kazuki took a deep breath. "Let's go and stop that world-destroying dragon." Just as he was talking, at the entrance, Naruto Tejai walked down. "Manager, the preparations have been completed." At the same time, outside Kusa town, about 10 kilometers away from where Deathwing appeared. This is a high mountain and a tourist attraction. But at this moment, at the mountainside, 3 or 5 virtual heads are running wild. "Captain Aizen, do you feel it?" Ichimaru Jin said with a smile. "In the southwest, about 10 kilometers away, there is a very strong aura." Hearing this, Aizen controlled Bengyu and said softly, "Not only one breath, but also some old friends, the nostalgic Reiki of Captain Hirako." Hirako Mako, the captain of the 5th Division more than 100 years ago. At that time, Aizen was the vice captain of the 5th Division. The grievances between the two are not small, and Hiroko Mako's incarnation was calculated by Aizen and used as a test product. Between the words, the five-headed emptiness in front of him gradually calmed down. Their masks shattered, from monster form to human form, and their own power was sealed into a Zanpakudo. See Aizen-sama. The five newly born broken faces immediately knelt down and saluted. Get up, everyone, you are the first batch of freshmen. I gave you strength, and now I need you to do things for me. Aizen smiled. Aizen-sama, please order. In the town of Kakuza in the southwest, there is an unusual war going on. You go to investigate the situation and report back. Yes. The five broken faces immediately nodded, disappeared quickly, and quickly dared to go to the southwest. Seeing this, Ichimaru Yin shook his head and said, these broken faces are not even a star and a half worse than the 10 Blades of Zai Palace. 10 Blades is basically Achukasa's Daxu broken face, and even Vasto's, and the current five-headed broken face is just a common empty, not even a Daxu, and its combat power is at most equivalent to the God of Death Vice Captain. It's just a failure. Aizen stared at the collapsing jade in his hand. Vivi Isho said, the fusion of the two collapsing jade has gradually succeeded, and the rest is only a matter of time. 4 days ago, after he betrayed the Soul Realm, he came to this world and immediately started the fusion of the two collapsed jades. Now that it has been completed gradually, it is possible to manufacture broken noodles in large quantities. However, because 873 did not have enough excellent materials, these broken faces were not considered combat power, and could barely be said to be cannon fodder. Aren't you going to see it for yourself? Ichimaru Jin said with a relaxed expression. Go in person. Lan Ran wanted to go, but Emperor Qin's warning was still in his ears, and he didn't dare now. Thinking of this, Aizen looked to the southwest and couldn't help shaking her head. The legendary king, the great fantasy demon, the other me compared with the current riot in Kakuza, it is more important to investigate the origins of these people. Aizen collected the collapsed jade, turned and left here. Silver, go to the next place. Yes, Captain Aizen. Ichimaru Jin followed Aizen to watch. Vivi opened his eyes, and his right palm hidden in his sleeve was holding the Zanpakudo. After a long time, he still gave up. The chaos in Kakuza-cho was not only felt in the present world, but also in the Soul Society. It's just that the Soul world is so weak at the moment that it doesn't have the energy to send combat power there. In the office of the captain of the first team, Yamamoto Yuanujai saw Kuchiki Rukia, who gradually regained his strength. You have important information that you want to explain to me. Yes, Captain. Kuchiki Rukia gritted her teeth, recalling the scene more than a month ago, and said, that was the beginning of everything. That night, a galaxy appeared in the sky. Chapter 0502-5th Division Captain, Arthur. That's where it all started. On the night of more than a month ago, Kuchiki Rukia performed the duty of stationing the God of Death, searching for the emptiness in the city. That night, above the night sky, a silver river appeared. The river flows from south to north, as if it came from outside the sky. It didn't appear for a long time, only a few minutes before and after. Not only that, the appearance of this galaxy is completely invisible to mortals. The Milky Way. Yamamoto Yuanujai fell into contemplation. He has lived for more than 2,000 years, and this is the first time he has heard of such a vision. Even in the historical records of the Soul Society, there is probably no such situation. Then what? Then I saw a fish. Kuchiki Rukia recalled. Because the distance is too far, I can't see the specific appearance clearly, but the outline is indeed a fish. It leapt from the Milky Way and fell to the river in Kakuza town. Pause, she said again. I chased it and came to the river, but I didn't see any fish, but encountered an unexpected person. Who? Qin Emperor. Kuchiki Rukia whispered. Dream Emperor Qin. I was subdued in an instant, when he used the 6-stick light prison. After that, he asked me a question, and then, I was caught by his sleeping palm, stun. It turned out to be Emperor Qin. A flash of shock flashed in Yamamoto Yuanyujai's eyes. Galaxy, fantasy, fish, what is the connection between these? Dreams come from the outer galaxy. No, maybe it's not just a dream that came, the King of Nights and the others, and even another Aizen, come across the river. Of course, this is just speculation, and Yamamoto Yuanyujai is not sure, but the secret of the Milky Way is definitely at stake. What did he ask you? Thinking of this, Yamamoto Yuanyujai then asked. He asked me, do you know Ichigo Kurosaki? I didn't answer. I didn't know who Ichigo Kurosaki was at the time, and he probably got the answer from my expression, so he stunned me right after. Why did Emperor Chin ask such a question? What is special about Kurosaki Ichigo? Yamamoto Yuanyujai couldn't help thinking, but there was no reasonable explanation. After a long time, he waved his hand and said, go back. Yes, Captain. After Kuchiki Rukia left, Yamamoto Yuanyujai called the new captain of the 5th Division, Arthur. During the day, the King of Nights participated in the captain's examination, and under the witness of several captains, he passed easily. Now, he has replaced his usual blue cloak, and is wearing a death tyrant and white feather woven instead. And behind its feather weave, the value marked as 5. Captain of the 5th Division, Arthur. Shan took over the position left by Aizen and became the captain of the new 1000. At this moment, he came to the first team captain's office, saw Yamamoto Yuanyujai, and said, Chief Captain, are you looking for me? Now in Kakuzucho, an abnormal situation has occurred, and the entire city will be destroyed. Yamamoto Yuanyujai said solemnly, our death god wants to protect the peace of the 3 realms, so we should have dispatched a team, but currently the 13th team of the Guardian. Let me go. King of Nights was too lazy to listen to his nonsense, and asked directly. Emperor Chin had warned at the time that the captain level should not step into the empty seat. He was surprised by the decisiveness of Yamamoto Yuanyujai. He had planned to recommend himself. As for Emperor Chin's warning, he is not the official captain yet, and he can bypass Emperor Chin's warning without going through the ceremony of taking over as the captain. Of course, the purpose of his trip to Kakuzucho was not to stop Deathwing, but to bring back the King of Heroes and prepare him to take over as the captain of the 3rd Division. Now that Yamamoto Yuanyujai took the initiative to mention it, of course he couldn't wait. No problem. I'm not an official captain yet. I'll lead the team, but I need to pick a few people. Hearing this, Yamamoto Yuanyujai nodded and said, you choose 3 vice captains and 6 officers to form a 10-member team. This operation will be very dangerous. Your main task is to find out the situation and lead the way. Back to the information. Understood. The King of Nights grinned Isho and immediately turned to leave. As for the candidate, he has already thought about it. First of all, there are 3 seats in the 11th team, 1 corner of the eyes. This person must be brought. This person knows Bankai, and he knew it a long time ago, so this is a Zanpakuto that can be absorbed. Of course, you have to bring it with you. When the time comes, you will find an opportunity for Deathwing to snatch the sword. Secondly, the vice captain of the first team, the head of the bird, Jiro, this person also knows Bankai, and the reason for bringing it is the same as above. At present, in the 13 teams, Bankai will be the only 2 people left. In addition to these 2 people, there are 2 candidates for vice captain and 5 candidates for chief officer. After a little thought, the King of Nights decided immediately and asked someone to inform him. A quarter of an hour later, in the Saranjay, in front of the gate of the realm, the gods of death who were notified have arrived. The 3 vice captains are the vice captain of the 1st Division, Minister Jiro, the vice captain of the 8th Division, Naneo Eyes, and the vice captain of the 5th Division, Hinamori Momo. The 6 officers were Ichigo Madarame, Ace Chuan Yujin, Kira Izuru, Hisagi Shubei, Kuchiki Rukia, and a random 5th Division officer. The 9 people gathered and waited in front of the crossing gate. Soon, the figure of the King of Nights came from a distance. Captain Arthur. Everyone asked in unison. Stop gossip, the situation is urgent, we will leave immediately. The King of Knights didn't talk nonsense, and immediately let people open the gate of crossing the world, and the first step into it. Young Sen, you're in a bad mood. As soon as his front foot entered the gate of crossing the realm, the King of Knights suddenly stopped. He glanced at his vice-captain and said, I think you should stay in the realm of corpses. No, Captain. Young Sendao was stunned, and quickly said, I'm fine, let me go with you. Really? Isho, the King of Knights, said, Captain Aizen, no, Aizen has defected to the world, don't you want to find him? It doesn't matter, but as the captain, I still have to ensure your safety. Saying that, he reached out and touched the girl's head. Captain, Hina Sentao looked sad and stared blankly. Aizen defected. For others, it was anger and disbelief, but for her, it was quite a blow. Hinamori, longing is the feeling that is the furthest away from understanding. Aizen said that. The King of Knights shrugged, and immediately stepped into the gate. Then, everyone, let's go. The group then followed up and entered the boundary. In the present world, Kakuzu-cho. This modern city was turned into a city of ruins in a short period of time. Flames were burning everywhere, lava everywhere. A world-destroying dragon hovering in the sky, constantly bringing disaster. On a broken street, a classical door appeared out of thin air. The door opened, and the King of Knights and his party stepped out one after another. Before a few people could see everything clearly, a black shadow was suddenly knocked down from the sky. Boom. PFF'd. Pingzi Junzi vomited blood and looked tired. He was seriously injured by Hua Paicheng, a giant dragon, and couldn't get up for a long time. Isn't stroking useless? Monsters. Chapter 0503_Tiny Mortal, Humble Reptile. Puff. Hiriko Mako was knocked out of the sky by a claw, and fell heavily on the broken street, which spilled out from between the mouths of the mask. Its mouth has a heavy dragon claw mark. Isn't even stroking useful? What a monster. He didn't get up for a while. Vivi shuddered, and half squatted on the ground. The ability of the reverse stroke is to control the nerves of others 100%. The specific effect causes the opponent's vision to be confused, and everything he sees is reversed. But somehow, Deathwing broke his abilities. This scene fell into the eyes of the King of Knights and others who had just arrived in the world, and immediately, all the gods of death were shocked. Jiro, the head of the Sparrow, said in shock, the former captain of the 5th Division, Hiriko. Hearing this, Hiriko Mako suddenly turned his head and saw Arthur and the others. His face changed slightly. The world of corpses. He didn't like the god of death, it could even be said that he hated it. When he saw the team of Soul Realm arrive at this moment, he suddenly remembered what happened 100 years ago. It's really unhappy that he hasn't completely let go of it for so many years. At this moment, several figures in the distance quickly approached and came to Hiriko Mako's side. You haven't run yet. Hiriko Mako was stunned. Leave you alone. Liuch Quanshi said helplessly, Hisori has to come back. Who wants to come back and save this bald man? Tsuruuki Hiyori showed his little tiger teeth and spoke in a Kansai accent, hurry up and get rid of this dragon, I don't want to stay with the god of death. He. A low laughter came, and above the sky, Deathwing was circling constantly, and his dragon eyes looked down at everyone. Humble reptile, none of you can escape. Between words, he raised his paw and was about to shoot it from the air. At this moment, 4 stone pillars suddenly rose in the 4 directions of the city. The stone pillars were tall. At the same time, the entire square space suddenly formed a special enchantment. The area of this barrier is extremely wide, covering almost 1/5 of the town of Kakuzu. Solid boundary pillar. A voice came, and at the same time, on the left side of Deathwing, 3 people came from the air. Urahara Kazuki whispered, Deathwing, why do you want to destroy the city? Your dream Emperor Qin, will you allow you to destroy this sacred land, at will? This is what he can't figure out. why Qin Emperor would allow his subordinates to destroy. Hearing the words, Deathwing looked at it for a while, observed the situation of the barrier, and said, "Will you prevent me from causing great damage?" The barrier is not to block the space, nor to transfer the entire city, but to simply prevent the aftermath of the internal battle from spreading outward. Let you continue to cause earthquakes and the whole city will be destroyed. Sorry, we have to stop you. Saifeng Yuan Yi said solemnly. What's the point of you taking Kongza town into your own territory, but doing such a thing? Zhu Sheng, Feng Wang, Chindi, they let you make trouble. By the way, Deathwing didn't answer at all. And at this moment, in the corner of the city below, the top of a building, Guling Taijai finished a long chant, and then slammed his palms on the ground with a light drink. The 99th of the Tao, urban, swastika. The spiritual pressure suddenly skyrocketed, immediately attracting everyone's attention. Deathwing Vivi looked sideways, glanced, and said, "Use words to distract me, give your people time to prepare for a sneak attack." A boring trick. Before the ghost path was activated, Gurutsusai did not convey any reiatsu at all. The opponent wore a black cloak that could isolate all spiritual pressure fluctuations, and even the breath of life would not be transmitted to the outside, which avoided the perception of Deathwing. "Taijai, do it!" Urahara Kazuki shouted, stretched out his palm at the same time, and chanted in his mouth. The turbid coat of arms is faintly revealed, the unruly and arrogant talent, the tide, the negation, the paralysis, the momentary, hinders the long sleep. The crawling iron princess, the clay doll who keeps self-mutilating, combines, bounces, and extends to the ground, know your own powerlessness. Quote. The 90 of destruction, the black coffin. An extremely heavy gravity suddenly enveloped Deathwing, making him unable to move for a moment. And at the moment when the black coffin began to exert its effect, Guling Tizai immediately shot. The first song, Stop the Tension. As soon as the voice fell, countless huge strips of cloth began to appear. These dark strips of cloth began to wrap around Deathwing's body from 4 directions, fixing his wings and wrapping his dragon claws. The next moment, Holding Ling Tiejai continued to shout, "Tu song Balianshu." Whoosh whoosh. Iron thorns suddenly fell from the sky and stabbed at Deathwing's body one after another. Each of these iron thorns seemed to fix people in this space together. Immediately afterwards, Huling Tejai shouted, "Final song, Swastika is Tu Feng." Boom. Suddenly, a huge stone tablet fell from the sky, its size is comparable to a high-rise building, and it descended directly on the top of Deathwing's head, smashing it into the sky and suppressing it. And when the number 99 binding road was completed, the black coffin also took shape in an instant. A huge black coffin board blocked Deathwing, which produced an incomparably huge gravity, and there were countless dark thorns running through it. Did it succeed? Below, Sally Yaminomaru murmured in shock. Such high-intensity breaking and binding, can it be successful? The number 99 bondage path is already the top-level bondage ghost path. If there is no such thing, what can stop Deathwing? This kind of ghost road, used to deal with the captain level, is no problem at all, and it can be easily suppressed. You must know that Holding Ling Taijai, who was a great ghost Taoist at the time, is one of the gods of death who are best at ghost Taoism in the entire corpse and soul world. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the black coffin space, and they saw that the huge black coffin was constantly shaking, as if it was about to shatter at any time. Mako Hiriko's complexion changed drastically. He ignored the physical injury, grabbed Hiyori Saraki, turned around and ran away. Go, don't look back. Not only him, but even the King of Knights, has already developed a barrier. If you don't want to die, just hide behind me. As soon as the voice fell, the next moment, there was a big explosion. A high-pitched dragon roar came out, and the black coffin space shattered inch by inch under the wings of Deathwing. The gravitational space collapsed, the bandages that bound him were torn, the iron thorns inserted into his body were cut off, and even the stone tablet that suppressed him collapsed at once. All the attacks were shattered and resolved under the flapping fan of the wings. No, impossible. Huling Tejai's pupils shrank suddenly, and his mind was horrified. Is this the great ruler? And in the midst of all the collapse, the Big Bang began to sweep outward. Crazy winds rage, lava billows. At the same time, the voice of Deathwing resounded through the earth. Small mortals, humble reptiles, just relying on your little power, do you want to imprison me? Giant dragon soul. Roar. In the dragon's roar, there seemed to be countless giant dragons roaring. Even above the sky, a group of dragon phantoms appeared, which were the souls of countless dragons, the power of giant dragons. Chapter 0504 The Raised Town of Kakuza. The power of the dragon. Above the night sky, the phantoms of the dragons are looming, and the dragon roars roar in unison, shaking the world. Deathwing fanned his wings, shattered the black coffin, and cracked the ban. With it as the center, the flame visible to the naked eye spreads out. Wherever he passed, all the buildings were weathered in an instant, and in the heat wave, turned into dust. Go. Hirako Mako didn't answer, pulling the sluggish Tsuruuki Hiyori, and quickly fled outwards. The rest of the masked crowd also wanted to avoid this natural disaster-like power. Captain Arthur. A death god murmured in horror, taking a few steps back. Don't panic, just stand behind me. The King of Knights looked calm, and he slowly drew out the sword from his waist. Not the Zanpakuto, but the sword that promises victory. Wind King Barrier. With a light drink, in an instant, the seal was released, and the power of the wind, which twisted the light, turned into a flawless shield, completely protecting the 10 members of the party. The next moment, the heat wave hits. Boom. In an instant, this heat wave turned everyone's vision into an orange-yellow color, and the fire and wind engulfed everything around them. Hinamori Dao and the others looked at the surrounding scene in amazement. Tall city buildings, street lights, streets, bridges, cars, everything was beaten by this heat wave, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into powder and dissipated with the wind. This is like a nuclear explosion, and everything on the ground within a radius of several thousand meters is moved to the ground. For a long time, after 4 or 5 minutes, the manic power gradually faded away. The flawless shield in front of the King of Knights dissipated, and everyone could see everything in front of them. The city disappeared. Madara eyes widened and stared in disbelief. It seems that this is not a modern city, but a volcanic land. There are broken earth everywhere, and the magma flowing all over the earth like veins. Buildings, high-rises, mansions, everything doesn't exist, it's all turned into powder, and nothing stands up anymore. On top of this dead silence, Deathwing was crawling on the ground, red light flashing all over his body, which was a scorching high temperature. The power of the giant dragon broke out before, because the energy was too powerful, but now he himself is very uncomfortable, and it seems that he is about to explode himself. I am careless. Deathwing struggled to suppress the power in his body, feeling a little helpless in his heart. It's really hard to control, a 2-star body can't bear such a huge power. At present, there are 20 phantoms, and Deathwing is the only transformation that is too powerful to control. The elementium armor on his surface peeled off slightly, revealing the flaming tendons underneath. The bare one of these tendons suddenly flowed out some blood plasma that burned like a flame. The plasma dripped on the ground, mixed with the magma, and immediately gave birth to strange-shaped monsters. The number of these monsters is extremely large, and in a short period of time, they have increased to dozens. The next moment, these monsters roared, asked about the breath of the soul, and launched an attack on the King of Knights and other gods of death. Captain, they're here. Hinamori clenched the sword in her hand and took a fighting stance. What are you going to do? The King of Knights glanced at her and saw that Vivi was trembling. He couldn't help but say, "Run, and fight him, you can't beat him." With that said, the first one turned and fled. At this moment, an emerald green light flew from the sky. It was a spaceship that was extremely fast. After approaching, it quickly stopped above the heads of the King of Knights and others. Simply ignoring the laws of physics, from high speed to standstill, there is no deceleration process at all. Arthur. Gilgamesh. King of Knights raised his head and said in surprise, "You came just in time, go." Saying that, he jumped onto the flying boat. "Come up too." Hearing the captain's words, the 9 looked at each other and immediately followed. Deathwing is too strong, and it is also one of the best among the fantasy monsters. The King of Knights said, "It is unwise to fight recklessly. Let's retreat first." Of course, this is deceiving. Although Deathwing is strong, it is only 2-star. For now, it is not as good as a 5-star ruler like Sea Dragon. Everyone wanted to leave, but before the boat started, dozens of monsters below jumped up one after another. The targets of these monsters are very unified, and they are all aimed at the corner of Mataraim and the head of Jiro. Immediately, the two were besieged by monsters and washed off the flying boat. One corner, Ace Chuan Yujin looked shocked, and immediately wanted to save people. But the King of Knights stopped him. "Don't worry, you go first, I'll stop later." Huh. With a light snort, Gilgamesh immediately controlled the flying boat and quickly evacuated. At this time, the King of Knights jumped down and went to save people. As soon as he landed, 3 or 5 monsters entangled in him, dragging his footsteps. Seeing this, the King of Knights immediately drew his sword and fought with him. Of course, he wasn't in a hurry to kill these monsters. He had to pretend and let Deathwing take away the Zanpakuto from the 2 of them. At the same time, Jiro and Mataraim were besieged by dozens of monsters, and the 2 of them retreated. Made of lava and Deathwing's blood, these monsters are not real creatures, but just go wild and attack. Moreover, even if it is beheaded, it will quickly revive. Damn it, we're going to be doomed if we go on like this. Madaramu and Jiro, the head of the Sparrow, back to back, gritted his teeth and said, "Vice Captain of the Sparrow, do you have any ideas?" "Who don't worry, I will let you escape safely." Jiro, the head of the Sparrow, looked serious and said solemnly, "You step back, I will block them." Having said that, he has already rushed up, Benkai Huang Yan Ling Li Palace. Boom. The spiritual pressure rose into the sky, and the sky was densely covered with clouds, and an oval-shaped electric light appeared. Thunderous. In an instant, half of the dozens of monsters were annihilated, but after the rest escaped a single blow, they rushed towards Sparrow Minister Jiro frantically. In the distance, Deathwing finally suppressed the runaway power in his body. He ignored the question of Jiro, the Minister of Sparrow, and looked sideways at the ruins. I saw the ruins of Vivi shook, one wall was pushed away, and the 3 of Urahara Kazuki walked out from below. "It's so dangerous I almost died." He wiped his cold sweat, waved his blade, and withdrew the shield of blood in front of him. Is this the power of the Great Master? 4.9 inches. He stared left and right, and couldn't help muttering. Saifeng Yuan took a deep breath at night, and the spiritual pressure in her body began to be released. As if a whirlwind swirled around her arms, her whole body exuded a gleaming light. Instant coax. Chi. Above its shoulders, Reiatsu seemed to have found a vent, and it continued to radiate outward. In this state, Saifeng Yuan Yei's physique rapidly climbed at an incredible speed. Huh. Deathwing stared at Kazuki Urahara and said, "When did your Zanpakuto recover?" "Thanks to you, I absorbed my Bankai, and I had to start from scratch and practice again." Urahara Kazuki pointed out with a sword and said softly, "I am stronger now than before." As soon as the voice fell, he slashed with a sword. In an instant, a blood-red slash shot out suddenly and swelled in an instant. Cut it, Red Princess. Chapter 0505-Active Muscles. Cut it apart, Red Princess. In the whispering voice, Urahara Kazuki raised his sword and immediately struck a bloody slash. After the slash flew out, it expanded rapidly, turning into a giant of more than 10 meters. At the moment when it approached Deathwing, the slash immediately split into dozens or hundreds of blood-colored arrows. Whoosh whoosh. The dense arrows flew towards them one after another. Seeing this, Deathwing opened its wings and shot out against the flying arrows. Under the flap of the wings, all arrows were smashed in an instant. Tickle. As expected. Urahara Kazuki's expression did not change. He moved his feet and rushed over quickly with the blade in hand. From the point of view of the fact that you had to land on the ground, you were also very uncomfortable with the ghost road just now. No, maybe you just couldn't control your own power and got eaten back. Very correct judgment. Deathwing secretly said in his heart. He didn't mean to hide, it was really uncomfortable, but it was no problem to clean up the group of people in front of him. Kazuki. A soft drink came out, and I don't know when, Sci-fi Yuanyei had appeared above Deathwing. Her back and shoulders were wrapped around a high concentration of Reiatsu, and in 15 minutes, she turned 360 lifts, and kicked Deathwing's head fiercely. Boom. With a dull sound, I saw Sci-fi Yuanyei's blow was blocked by Deathwing's left wing. The huge Reiatsu generated explosive power, but it failed to penetrate the wings. It's so hard. Sci-fi Yuan's eyes narrowed, and she immediately retreated. At the same time, the spiritual pressure around her body increased by a few points. As mortals, you're already pretty good. The old god of Deathwing was there, inciting his wings and opening his mouth full of leeway. Cry, Hongji. At this moment, Urahara Kazuki was already close. He dodged, came to the right side, and swung his sword at the same time. Whoosh. The blood-red slash, like a crescent-shaped Reiatsu, aimed at the right wing of Deathwing and slashed. Huh. Deathwing Vivi narrowed his eyes, and immediately did not choose to use his wings to resist, but raised his dragon claw and grabbed it suddenly. The dragon's claws were huge, comparable to the size of a few adults. At this time, they suddenly grabbed them and easily crushed the bloody slash. This kind of attack can't even break my skin. Deathwing Zhang Kailong breathed out a hot breath. Urahara Kazuki, if you still want me to fight, let's practice for another 10,000 years. Between the words, the energy in his mouth gathered, and he spit out a dragon's breath. Boom. The scorching heat of the dragon's breath is the power of magma, and the crimson magma is like a scorching current, spurting out violently. Is there such power? Urahara Kazuki Vivi was startled, and when he was about to block his Zanpakuto in front of him, the shield of Shuexia. A blood-colored shield suddenly appeared, and the magma jet sprayed into it, pushing it hundreds of meters away in an instant. At this time, Sci-fi Yuanyei, who had adjusted his posture, had approached again, and slammed into Deathwing's head with a punch. This fist wrapped a huge spiritual pressure, and at the moment of punching, it seemed to burst, and before the punch came, a heavy spiritual pressure enveloped. Is it instant coax? The combination of white fights and ghosts is a very good ability when used in hand-to-hand combat. Deathwing seemed too lazy to dodge and let the punch fall on his dragon head. Boom. With a muffled sound, Deathwing didn't move. What? Sci-fi Yuanyei was taken aback, then his face changed slightly, gritted his teeth and endured the pain in his right arm. She punched out. The enemy was fine, but she herself was injured. At this moment, her right arm was shaken back, and she was instantly paralyzed. At this moment, Deathwing's body lifted up, and at the same time, his claws stretched out and grabbed it violently in his hands. You are the pet of Lord Qin Emperor. I don't treat you like that, but you are so annoying. Vivi squeezed hard, and in an instant, Sci-fi Yuanyei let out a scream, and the force of the coax quickly dissipated. Suddenly, Deathwing's eyes turned and looked at another place. There, Ryatsusai held a scepter and chanted at a high speed. Its spiritual pressure gathers on the scepter, and finally forms a special ghost way. Forbidden art time stops. Suddenly, with him as the center, the flow of time disappeared, and all the pictures were frozen. The flowing magma, the dust in the sky, the scorching air, the starlight at night, everything suddenly fell into a state of prohibition. Even Deathwing was frozen for a moment because of this power. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Siphon Yuan Yi immediately fled with Shunbu. After a second, Deathwing returned to normal. He did not pursue, but looked at Wuling Tizai from a distance. Do you still have this kind of power? He said calmly. It's a pity that stopping my time for 1 second is your limit. Your death god's attack, whether it's Zanpakuto or Ghost Dao, probably won't break through. My defense, my elementium armor, none of you can break it. The source material armor, wrapped around the body of Deathwing, is because the dragon's soul is too powerful. This armor is to prevent the body from tearing. Its defense is extremely strong, and Urahara Kazuki and the others could not break this protection at all. The little armor that shattered before was torn apart by Deathwing's excessive force. It's a monster. Holding Ling Tejai, breathing heavily, he used the high-difficulty ghost path several times in a row. The swastika can't be restrained, and the black coffin that can withstand the full power has no scars. What kind of power can cause damage to it? No, at least a few of them can't suppress this world-destroying dragon. The store manager. Thinking of this, Grim Tetsusai looked at Kazuki Urahara and cast an inquiring look. Ha! With a sigh, Urahara Kazuki didn't make another move, but instead said, we can talk. Oh, a mere mortal deserves me to talk to me. Deathwing raised his big chin. I'll give you a chance. What do you want to say? It won't do you any good to destroy Kakuzucho. This is the land of heavy spirits. If you continue to make trouble, the land of heavy spirits will not exist. Urahara Kazuki pressed the brim of his hat and said in a low voice, stop it. I can tell you how I can reacquire Red Princess. You must be very concerned about this plundering Bankai, the god of death. Is that right? I do care a bit. Although it is certain that the Shinigami who was taken away from Bankai will regain his strength sooner or later, but in just over a month, Urahara Kazuki has retrained Shikai, which is a little surprising to him. It is definitely not a conventional method. There must be some shortcuts. With Urahara Kazuki's ability, it can be done completely. No problem. Deathwing immediately agreed. I didn't plan to destroy the world at all, I just sat for a long time and moved my muscles a little. Active muscles. Just move around and a city will be destroyed. Urahara Kazuki took a deep breath and had an intuitive understanding of the power of the dragon. From the beginning to the end, this giant dragon just had a playful mentality, but even so, its destructive power was so terrifying. Flap your wings and you can set off a tsunami. Take a photo of the dragon's claws, and the earth can be cracked. Its existence itself is the master of all things, the incredible defensive power, the destructive power that shakes the world, all of which are superimposed together. It is the dragon. Before I tell you, I want to ask a question. Urahara Kazuki stared at the other party and said, you are the only giant dragon in this world, right? I am the Black Dragon King. Deathwing snorted softly and said, the king of the Black Dragon clan. What do you think? Hearing this, Urahara Kazuki's complexion changed drastically. Chapter 0506_Repression. The king of the Black Dragon clan. Since they are all called the Black Dragon clan, in addition to the Black Dragon King in front of him, there must be a group of giant dragons. What's more, with black dragons, are there red dragons and blue dragons? Urahara Kazuki only felt that the worldview had been subverted. In the past 2,000 years, the soul world has been like an island in the sea, and only a few words have been known about the outside world. Rao is because his mind is deep, and he is a little confused at the moment. If a group of black dragons came, would they have the power to resist? Not to mention, the Black Dragon Deathwing is only one of the 3 great masters of fantasy. The more in-depth understanding, the more you can feel the despair of being unable to resist. After a while, he came back to his senses and said, you are from the outside world, from the Western continent. No, if that's the case, why have we been ignorant of you for thousands of years? No comment. Deathwing snorted a stream of air between his nose and said, tell me, how did you get back the power of Hongji? About that, I can tell you, it's not out of the ordinary. Urahara Kazuki shook his head and said, Zanpakuto, its shape, state and ability are built on the prototype of the soul of the god of death. The god of death knows the name of the Zanpakuto given to him, and through the spiritual relationship with it. Talk to get power. Born with the god of death, and died with the god of death, this is Zanpakuto. Stop talking nonsense and focus. Deathwing said impatiently that he didn't need an explanation for this attempt. The point is that all Zanpakuto are made by one person. His original form was a shallow strike, and it came from the hands of the two-sword god, King Yu. Urahara Kazuki said calmly, since it is a forged thing, it must have raw materials. What do you think the raw materials of Zanpakuto are? A soul. Deathwing's eyes flashed, and he suddenly realized it. That's right, the raw material of the Zanpakuto is the fusion of the souls of many gods of death. Urahara Kazuki looked stern, stared at Deathwing, and said softly, since you know the composition of the raw materials, then restoring the Zanpakuto is very simple. You rebuilt one. Deathwing was a little surprised. No, rebuild, to be exact. Urahara Kazuki shook his head and said, of course, it's just an image, but in fact, I just took a piece of my soul and integrated it into the Zanpakuto, taking this as an opportunity to reshape the blade. Now that the blade has been reshaped and the Zanpakuto has returned to its normal state, Shikai and Bankai will not be a problem after that. With the speed of Urahara Kazuki's cultivation, I am afraid that 1 month is enough for him to cultivate back to Bankai. Thinking of this, Deathwing asked in his heart, Han, scan. Scanning is over. Discover the mysterious power. The number is 1, the orientation, and the front. 7. Fantasy Gene's answer immediately confirmed his conjecture. Sure enough, this guy has been repaired back to Bankai. Deathwing secretly said, as expected of the first-generation director of the Technology Development Bureau, this kind of technology, I am afraid that apart from him and Wang Yu, there is no third person. No, there is a third person. Aizen Sosuke. If I remember correctly, Aizen will also have a similar technique. He once created a virtual white, that is, the power of the void in Kurosaki Ichigo, which was formed by the fusion of countless death spirits. Of course, this is not important. The important thing is that as long as this technology is available, even if the Reaper loses Bankai, he can regain his strength in a very short period of time. Since Urahara Kazuki can think of it, or Maya Wang Yu can definitely think of it. Looks like it's time to absorb those Captain's Zanpakuto as soon as possible, and then replace the hilt. This method must have a hilt, return the hilt to the god of death, and they can recultivate Bankai. Thinking of this, Deathwing suddenly lost his mind to play. He immediately looked into the distance, where Kazana Madarame and Jiro, the head of the Sparrow, were killing many monsters. Urahara Kazuki's Bankai, put it aside for now. Ichigo Madarame, head of Sparrow Jiro, Meiko Hirako, Kensai Rokucha, and Jiro Hoshihashi. These 5 people's Zanpakuto, together with Kurosaki Ichigo's Tiansuo Zanyu, and the 10 swords of many captains, a total of 16, is enough to raise Snow Saint to 5-star. Thinking of this, he immediately flapped his wings and flew high into the sky again. I'm running out of patience. Humble reptiles, kneel down. Roar. Deathwing uttered a dragon roar, and flew away at a very fast speed. In the distance, Jiro, the head of the Sparrow, once again killed dozens of monsters. While breathing, he found the attack of Deathwing, and his color changed immediately. You go first. I'll block him. Go, he shouted in a hurried tone. No, Vice Captain of the Sparrow Division, I'm not a man who runs away. Madaramu's eyes were sharp. Vivi narrowed his eyes, and at the same time raised his Reiatsu to the limit. Please help me keep it a secret, and never tell Captain Zaragi. He shouted, Bankai Dragon Pattern Onitomaru. Boom. The spiritual pressure rising into the sky is like a pillar of light. A captain-level spiritual pressure instantly shrouded this ruin. I saw the Zanpakuto in the corner of the eye, which quickly became huge and turned into 3 blades, like a monk's blade, one behind the back and one for the left and right hands. Vice Captain of the Sparrow, if I die, remember to take my body back. In the loud shout, Madaramu greeted Deathwing with a corner. Seeing this, Jiro, the head of the Sparrow, stared blankly. Bankai. Only 3 seats in the 11th team. He did not expect to master Bankai, which shocked him, but in the face of Deathwing, it was far from enough. Let's compliment you on your courage, and then, fall down. The Deathwing suit swooped down, and the raised dragon claws slapped against the huge blade. Dragon's claw. Of a giant dragon, and when this claw is slapped, it seems to shatter the space. Madaramu's corner is not afraid of death, waving a huge blade, facing the dragon's claw. Is your claws harder or my knife sharper? He grinned and looked crazy. The next moment, the two collided in midair. Boom! With a dull and violent sound, a crack appeared on the huge cutting edge of the dragon-marked ghost pill, and then with a bang, it shattered into several pieces. What? Madara eyes widened in a corner, full of incredible expression. His Zanpakuto was a physical attack type, known for its strength, lethality, and tenacity. However, the dragon claws of the opposite Deathwing were smashed into pieces. Boom! Suddenly, together with his Zanpakuto, he turned into a cannonball and fell to the ground. Deathwing swirled. Vivi glanced at his paw, and there was a shallow mark on it. 3 seats of Madaramu. Jiro, the head of the Sparrow, looked surprised, and then hummed angrily, "You bastard!" Wanlei. With an angry shout, in an instant, a cloud of electric light suddenly struck. Seeing this, Deathwing opened the dragon's mouth and roared. "You too, reptile!" Roar! The flames burned the sky, and the flames that covered half of the sky swallowed the thundercloud in an instant, and then crushed Jiro, the head of the Sparrow, away. Boom! Under the breath of the dragon, the whole earth was burning. In an instant the 2 Bankai's death gods were killed. Saifeng Yuan Yei's heart shook, and he stood there dumbfounded, completely stunned. Chapter 0507_Who's Mass Recovery. Sparrow Minister Jiro and Madaramu, the 2 of them were easily suppressed in a short period of time. The flames enveloped the earth and suffered a dragon's breath, but Jiro, the head of the Sparrow, did not fall down, but was half kneeling, covered in wounds. Of his death tyrant outfit has been burnt, and his skin exposed in the air has been burnt extensively, and his appearance is extremely miserable. Damn! Jiro, the head of the Sparrow, was pale and his body was trembling. The next moment, Deathwing had already obeyed, and a dragon claw slapped him down and pressed him to the ground. Roar! With a dragon roar in the face, at such a close distance, he was shocked by the dragon's might, and Minister Jiro only felt that his soul had become extremely unstable, and it seemed that he would collapse. With a puff, he vomited blood, and the whole person's consciousness began to gradually fall into a coma. Relax, I won't kill you. Since you haven't violated the agreement, and the one who entered the world is not the captain, then I won't kill you. Deathwing grabbed the Zanpakuto that had fallen by the side, and put it away. Correspondingly, your sword, I'll take it later. And at this moment, the Night King not far away finally solved the many monsters besieging him. When he saw that the 2 of them were defeated, he immediately raised his sword and cut it out. Excalibur. Boom! The holy sword emits golden light, and when it is cut out, it turns into a huge laser beam, which is suddenly excited from the end of the sword. With one sword, everything is destroyed. In the face of this blow, Deathwing immediately tightened his wings and blocked the front. The next moment, a blow from the Sword of Oath of Victory slammed into the wings. However, this seemingly huge attack, its actual power is not worth mentioning. The moment the golden beam hits, its power begins to end, and finally a big explosion illuminates the entire ruined land. Holy Golden World. Night King. In the distance, Saifeng Yuan Yi narrowed his eyes, resisting the dazzling light. What a powerful force this is, the first time I have seen the battle between these outsiders. She thought to herself and couldn't help but want to observe, but the light was too strong to see the specific details. After a long time, when the brilliance dissipated, Deathwing stood intact, his wings repeatedly smoking white smoke. As for Madaramu and the others, they were rescued by the King of Knights and disappeared, and I don't know where to hide. In this regard, Deathwing did not intend to pursue, and deliberately let go of Death. Turning his eyes, he looked at the other Zanpakuto on the ground, the one in the corner of Madaramu's eyes, and immediately put it away. Where's the masked army? After solving the Death God's side, Deathwing immediately began to perceive, and after a while, he looked northward. Running fast. No point, though. Without hesitation, Deathwing immediately let out a loud roar. The next moment, in the flames above the burning earth, a phoenix roar came out, and then, the flames rose into the sky like a tornado. That's, Sifeng Yuan Yi Vivi was startled. I saw that a phoenix was slowly being born in the spiral flame. God bird. In a light voice, King Ho entered the state of a divine bird, and in an instant, its speed climbed to supersonic speed, even several times the speed of sound. The harsh sound of breaking through the air sounded, and Ho Wong turned into a sky-shattering arrow, suddenly heading in the direction of the masked army. Wherever he passed, a colorful rainbow appeared in the sky, the rainbow light fell on the earth, and all things recovered. It seems to be the source of life, nourishing this dead land. The flames gradually dissipated, the high temperature disappeared, and the vegetation was changing again and again. Among the endless ruins, the souls of human beings were being reborn. 1, 210, 100, 1000, 10,000. Urahara Kazuki watched this scene in shock, and couldn't help but muttered, "Is this the power of God? Mass recovery." Sifeng Yuan Yi's face was equally horrified, and the whole person was dumbfounded. The Master of Life, the great Master of King Feng. No wonder it is called life. This is the power of mastering the life of the dead. A master of destruction, a master of life, can only be fully understood after he has truly seen it. This is not a realm that Death God, Void, and Quincy Masters can achieve. Such a powerful existence, in a dream, is only a master. Emperor Qin, who the hell is he? Sifeng Yuan Yi couldn't help but murmured, even the great master possesses this kind of divine power. As a dream leader, what kind of power does he have? To make so many tyrannical creatures surrender, the power of Emperor Qin is beyond her imagination. Her imagination is simply not enough. I am afraid that even the Spirit King at his peak may not be able to compare to him. Under the late night sky, the divine bird swept across the city, and the light of the rainbow swayed all the way. Hundreds of thousands of people who died were resurrected one by one. This process was extremely fast. In just a few minutes, Ho-Oh had already flown out of Kakuzacho and caught up with the masked army. Stop struggling. With a flash of rainbow light, King Ho's figure was immediately intercepted in front of Hiriko Mako and the others. I am the Master of Life, King Ho. Another one. Mask and the others changed their expressions, and they all took on fighting stances. Since it is the Master, it must be as powerful as the Black Dragon. Wait. Hiriko Mako stopped the others and said quickly, "We disturbed the Black Dragon King. I'm sorry for that. We can apologize. There's no need to chase after us." He. King Feng chuckled and said, "It doesn't matter. I will intercept you, but you will need to pay the price." What price? You, Liuch Kensai and Fengchao Luzhiro, please give me the Zanpakuto. Feng Wang's instigator's wings gradually landed. No need to resist. With the strength of the few of you, it is not my opponent. No matter how bad it is, even if you defeat me, the rest of the masters will show up, and your resistance will not matter at all. Meaningless. Between the words, in front of him, a black ball suddenly appeared, and then the black ball stretched and turned into a human shape. It was a man with long white hair. What? Hiriko Mako looked shocked. He couldn't understand at all. How did this guy appear? What kind of ability is this? Who are you? I am the ruler of Yin and Yang, 6 spots. Madara Uchiha said in an indifferent tone. Masamatsu, hand over your Zanpakuto. Seeing the other party being so aggressive, Hiriko Mako couldn't help being a little annoyed, but he endured it. knowing that he would definitely not be able to beat him here. However, he can bear it, and some people can't bear it. Don't stop me, I'll deal with them. Liu Quanxi snorted angrily and said, Bankai Iron Fist Duanfang. However, at the moment of its Bankai, the 6 spots moved. In an instant, he disappeared in place, and in the next moment, he appeared in front of Liu Quanxi. Impossible. Liu Quanxi's pupils shrank, and a fist suddenly hit in his field of vision. Under this kind of timing, he couldn't dodge at all. Boom. With a dull sound, he was knocked down by a punch, and his entire head was slammed into the ground. This sudden scene suddenly shocked everyone and stood there stupidly. HMPH, in the world of force, being weak is the original sin. Liu Daoban snorted coldly and slowly retracted his fist. Mask, give you a piece of advice. I count to 3, if you resist again, I will completely annihilate you. Chapter 0508_5 Snow Saint. I count to 3, if I resist again, I will completely annihilate you. Liu Daoban was too lazy to talk nonsense, and directly gave the final announcement. Hearing this, the faces of the masked army members were extremely ugly. Being so persecuted, anyone with a bit of blood will be provoked. Hirako Mako was extremely angry in his heart, but his reason was still there, and even if he was burning with anger, he would not take action. In contrast, Tsuruuki Hiyori couldn't hold back, and the Zanpakuto Vivi in his hand trembled, showing his inner anger. Don't be impulsive. Hirako Mako immediately held her shoulders and said, judging by reason, we fight 8-2 no, 7-2, is there any chance of winning? 7-2, this is still based on the premise that the other masters of the dream will not appear. So, shall we obediently hand over the Zanpakuto? Tsuruuki Hiyori gritted his teeth, frowning. Hand over it. Fengchao Lujiro took off the Zanpakuto and threw it in front of Liu Daoban. Hirako, what do you think? Take a step back here. Pingzi Mako took a deep breath and threw out his repulsion. Dream, this time, we will admit defeat. What you want, now give it to you. From now on, the well water will not make the river water. He. Liu Daoban stretched out his hand and grabbed it. Immediately, the 3 Zanpakuto on the ground flew up one after another and fell into his hands. Will the water in the well make the river? Maybe, there will be opportunities for cooperation in the future. Who will cooperate with you? Tsuruuki Hiyori couldn't help shouting angrily. Little girl, the world is very wonderful, don't use your feelings to speculate about the future. Liu Daoban glanced at her, turned and walked towards King Ho. For the sake of your acquaintance, let me give you a little information. Aizen has already obtained the Benyu, and in the next few months, the Benyu will be completed. Fusion. Farewell, Mask. As he said that, he had already walked to King Ho's side, and then the 2 of them flew into the air together and left in a flash. Zanpakuto has been gathered, so the farce can naturally end. Until then, though, there are still a few ants to clean up. Within the barrier of the solid world, the ordinary people who were unfortunately killed due to the fission of the earth have now been resurrected under the power of King Ho. These people didn't know what happened. Many of them died inexplicably. At this moment, they came back to life. After a brief period of confusion, they immediately noticed the huge dragon in the sky. Dragon! Quick, run! Call the police! There was a commotion in the crowd, and hundreds of thousands of people were fleeing frantically. Deathwing watched all this coldly and did not stop it. He turned his eyes, looked at Kazuki Urahara, and said, you can take care of the aftermath yourself. As he spoke, he flapped his wings, turned his direction, and headed northeast. Seeing this, the 3 Urahara Kazuki looked at each other. Woling Tejai couldn't help but say, what do they mean? First destroy the city, and then resurrect the mortals. Move your muscles and bones. Urahara Kazuki shook his head and sighed. With such a group of terrifying beings entrenched in Kakuza town, this city has no way to live, and will soon become a dead city. The government, I am afraid, also will give up here and even mobilize the army over here. Quote. Erase their memories first, and let this disaster turn into a special earthquake. Siphon Yuan Yi whispered. Don't involve mortals, even 1,000,000 troops can't stop this black dragon. Nodding, Urahara Kazuki took out a sprayer, ready to wash away the memories of this group of mortals. And at this moment, the sound of footsteps came. The three of them were stunned for a while, then looked sideways, and saw that they were wearing a death tyrant outfit, a white feather woven, like a drape, tied over the left shoulder. His expression was calm, and when he stepped forward, his eyes were also looking left and right. Ishin-san, Urahara Kazuki said in surprise, your power of death has been restored. Ah, what happened just now? Kurosaki Yixin nodded and said, it was really tragic. Was that black dragon strong? Yes, very strong. Urahara Kazuki was silent for a moment before saying, if it is just a single existence, we can find a way to deal with it, but according to one person, this black dragon is just one of the 3 great masters of fantasy. You should understand. That's terrifying. Kurosaki Yixin frowned. What purpose do these outsiders have? I don't know, but it must be related to the Spirit King. Leave that aside, do you know where Ichigo is? Kurosaki asked. Did Linglang not go back? Urahara Kazuki was stunned. I am too old, I can't control it anymore, I haven't come back so late, is it possible that I have a girlfriend? Kurosaki couldn't help thinking, and his expression was a little weird. However, compared to his optimism, Urahara Kazuki couldn't help but look down. I'm afraid something went wrong. Outside Kakuza town, in the northeast direction, 5 figures are escaping quickly. Damn, how did this dragon find us? I have suppressed Reiatsu to the extreme, how can I feel our presence? Run, I'm chasing after me. Go back and report to Aizen-sama. The 5 people acted extremely quickly and ran wildly, daring not to be careless at all. After 5 people, Deathwing followed unhurriedly. He fanned his wings and set off a gust of wind, blowing the 5 people in front of him. How many of you are broken? Did Aizen send them? You know Aizen-sama. One of them was taken aback. HMPH, go back and tell him that if he has nothing to do and send spies over, I'll kill him. Deathwing snorted coldly, and between his nose and mouth, scorching hot air flowed out. At first glance, these 5 broken faces showed that their breath was unstable, and it was obvious that they had just broken faces. And it appears at the same time, it must not be a natural broken face, but a man-made one. Only Aizen can do this kind of thing. Reptile, go to hell and stay well. Roar. Deathwing breathed a dragon's breath, and the flames and magma spurted out together, swallowing the 5 people in an instant. Suddenly, screams sounded, and immediately 3 people couldn't bear the power and were directly burned to death. The other 2 were also seriously injured and one was dying. Go away, come back to Kakuza-cho, I'll go to the virtual circle and slaughter you all. Hearing this, the 2 broken faces who survived by chance, did not even dare to raise their anger, took out their last strength, and ran away frantically. Mission accomplished. Time to take a break and repair the Elementium armor. Thinking like this, Deathwing swooped down and directly submerged into a river. At the same time, Kakuza-cho, the entire city, is the only intact building. It was an abandoned cathedral. On the 2nd floor of the church, Chinyang was sitting. In the hall below, King Ho and Ludao Madara walked in. Bankai, including Kurosaki Ichigo's Tiansuo Zanyu, were thrown to the ground. Very good. Chinyang nodded with satisfaction, it's time to upgrade to 5 stars. I have a hunch that the 5 stars this time will be quite different. As soon as the voice fell, a snow lotus flashed out and quickly turned into a snow saint. Chapter 0509_Kitten, you are so rude. After 5 stars, what kind of abilities will be produced? Can it break the star restriction? Snow Lotus appeared, and then turned into the appearance of Snow Saint. All the phantom bodies now are plagued by a problem, that is, star restriction. After reaching the full star level, most of the phantom bodies have lost the direction of further evolution. It would be unreasonable to say that it is impossible to become stronger, but a way has not yet been found. Absorb first. Shaking his head, Shui Sheng didn't think much about it. He took one step and came to the center of the church. He reached out and stroked the 16 Zanpakudo. A mysterious force poured into the body. This power fills the whole body, changes its life form, and evolves towards a higher level. I saw Shui Sheng's body. The power of extreme cold overflowed outwards, and the entire abandoned cathedral, its walls, floors, stone pillars, began to appear cold frost everywhere, and the sound of freezing continued to sound. It's started. Feng Wang whispered to himself, and immediately spread out his own power, forming a circle of protection around him to block the invasion of cold frost. Similarly, behind Liu Daoban, 9 Taoist jades flew out, forming a block in front to resist the movement of Shui Shengxing. On the second floor, Qin Yang sat calmly on the guardrail, all the power dissipated as he approached his body. This force slowed down the flow of time and solidified the space. At this moment, the entire cathedral turned into an ice sculpture. There is an inconsistency between the internal and external time flow rate. This time, the rising star lasted for dozens of hours. Qin Yang just sat there, quietly watching the changes of Zusheng Wanshan. Until the outside sky, when the sun shed the first rays of sunshine, in the cathedral, after nearly 40 hours, the ability of the snow saint to overflow, finally began to converge. At the same time, the information about Shui Sheng changed in his mind. 18th change. Snow Saint, Ice Snow Lotus Monster. Star Rating. Ability 1. Body of Ice and Snow. Ability 2. Snow Wind. Ability 3. Frozen Sacred Lotus. Ability 4. Deep Cold Frontier. Ability 5. Frozen Snow Lotus. 5-star ability, its name is Ice Sky Snow Lotus Picture. In the palm of Shui Sheng, after the power gathered, it gradually formed a picture scroll. In the picture scroll, there was an extremely cold place. On the top of a cliff, a snow lotus bloomed proudly. The entire picture scroll is only the size of a palm, but the scene inside it is lifelike, and you can even see snowflakes dancing and wind and snow rolling. This ability is to seal a space in the form of a picture scroll, such as this, X. Shui Sheng whispered and raised his hand gently. Immediately, the ice sky and snow lotus figure flew up, and the next moment, it was like a vortex on the sea surface, and the entire space was centered on it, and quickly began to collapse and collapse. It was as if a hole had been opened in this world, and all the substances were swallowed and sealed by the ice sky snow lotus. Theoretically, if you expand this ability, you can seal a planet in the picture scroll. Shui Sheng said softly, of course, it will take a long time. With the power of the 5-star Snow Saint, it will take a few months to complete the seal of a planet. Once completed, the entire planet will be engraved in the ice and snow lotus map like a picture scroll. Very powerful ability. Every illusion, 5-star ability, is always the strongest, that's right. Qin Yang shook his head, somewhat dissatisfied. Unfortunately, the star restriction has not been broken. No matter how strong the ice sky and snow lotus figure is, it is also the power of seals, and it seems impossible to break the star restrictions. At present, it seems that Bengyu from Eisen is more reliable. Bengyu can evolve infinitely, but that is only for the phantom body blue dye, and it is not necessarily useful for other phantom bodies. Thinking of this, Qin Yang immediately thought. Immediately, Shui Sheng, Liu Daoban, Feng Wang, the 3 phantom bodies all turned into streamers and submerged in his body. Give the handle back first. Helplessly got up, Qin Yang jumped gently to the first floor of the church, then waved his hand and rolled up the hilts of 16 Zanpakudo. After stepping out of the church, the sky outside was already bright. The early morning sun shines on the ruined city. There are almost no intact buildings in the entire city. More than 1/5 of the area has been completely razed to the ground. Ordinary people have already fled, and there are only a few people still in this city. Qinyang let go of his perception and enveloped the entire city. After a while, he found the location of Kurosaki Ichigo. It's kind of interesting that these two people actually got mixed up. Vivi Isho, Qinyang immediately went towards the target direction. Urahara Store, underground space. Affected by the battle last night, most of this underground space has collapsed. At this moment, including the 3 Urahara Kazuki, the 8 members of the masked army, and Kurosaki Ichigo, are all here. Kurosaki Ichigo and Ruka Kensai are still in a coma. The former was knocked unconscious by Gilgamesh, and the latter was severely injured by 6 Dao Madara. How's the situation? Fengchao Lujiro asked in a deep voice while standing on a piece of gravel. There is nothing wrong with Liuch Quanchi. He can recover after a few days of training. I have already used Wei Dao to treat him. Huling Tizai frowned and said, however, Ichigo's problem is more troublesome. He lost the Zanpakuto, and the power of void in his body exploded. During this time, he couldn't suppress that power, and it was very likely that he would become void and change. Become virtual. Leave this to us, we can help him master the power of the virtual. Hiroko Mako scratched his head, with a headache expression on his face. The trouble is the news. In the morning news station in Japan has exposed the matter of Kakusa town. Although it is a big earthquake, there are too many doubts. Before long, a group of good people will come here. The involvement of mortals will make things very troublesome, and now the eyes of all Japan are focused on Kakusa-cho. And soon there will be people who have power coming in. That's right, in this world, in addition to death, void, and Quincy, there are other human beings who have power. Even King Arthur and King of Heroes exist. What else is impossible? A group of people were talking when suddenly, a laughter came. Huh. Everyone froze in unison, and their eyes suddenly looked at it. I saw a foot in the underground 0.3 space, and the space set off ripples like water waves, and then a figure stepped out. The man was dressed in a long snow-white coat, and his posture was ethereal, as if it existed here, but it didn't exist. Emperor Qin. Urahara Kazuki's expression tightened and he got up. Unlike the last time I saw Emperor Qin, this time, he was under even more pressure. I used to be ignorant and fearless, but the more I know now, the more frightened I am of this unfathomable man. Why are you so guarded? Qinyang put his hands in his pockets, his eyes were calm, he glanced at Urahara Kazuki, then at Yaiki, and said, I'm just here to return your things. As he said that, he waved his hand, and immediately, the hilts of the 3 Zanpakuto flew in front of everyone. Little she-cat, you are very rude, how dare you attack Deathwing last night? Chapter 0510-Leader, Deputy Leader. Little mother cat, you are very bad, you actually shot against Deathwing last night. Qinyang stepped forward, his expression relaxed, and he seemed to be defenseless. Tell me, how should I punish you? Qinyang said with a chuckle. Hearing this, Saifeng unconsciously took a few steps back, obviously having a little instinctive fear of Emperor Qin. Last night, that giant dragon was going to destroy the city. This place is a place of heavy spirituality. As a dream leader, you didn't stop it. Saifeng Yuan asked back at night. To this, Qinyang did not answer. He just tried the power of Deathwing last night. How could it really destroy the whole city? Turning his eyes, he looked at Kurosaki Ichigo who was lying on the ground, and immediately reached out and pressed it in the air. Light heals. In an instant, the power of holy light radiated from Qinyang's palm, and the divine brilliance instantly enveloped Kurosaki Ichigo. What do you want to do? Saifeng Yuan said in surprise. Urahara Kazuki raised his hand 15, preventing her from making further movements. He's saving people. Urahara Kazuki couldn't help but glance at Qinyang. I didn't expect you to have such power. The power of holy light comes from the holy archangel. In terms of healing, the power of the holy light is superior to Ho-Oh's resurrection of the dead, but the archangel cannot revive the dead. There is an essential difference between the two. After a while, the holy light dissipated, and Kurosaki Ichigo's eyelids trembled as he slowly opened his eyes. He woke up, and when he saw the people around him, he couldn't help being stunned. Mr. Urahara, yikes. He swept over the crowd and finally saw Chin-young. His pupils shrank immediately. Chin, Emperor Chin. Are you so afraid of me? Chin-young Isho said, I am your savior, you should thank me. What? Kurosaki Ichigo was confused. In this regard, Chin-young was too lazy to answer, but looked at the other people and said, I just woke him up. The power of emptiness in his body needs to be suppressed by himself. Why do you want to save him? Ping Zishenzi frowned deeply and looked at Chin-young quietly. This was the first time he saw Emperor Chin, but he felt like an ordinary person. Emperor Chin is an ordinary person, that is impossible. It can only be attributed to the fact that the other party surpassed him so much that he couldn't see the truth. No big reason, just do it. Chin-young Vivi laughed and said, I'm waiting for a dream, but it's a peace-loving organization. Oh. No one will believe this. Urahara Kazuki could guess a few points that Emperor Chin was raising pigs. Dream needs a Bankai level Zanpakudo, and Kurosaki Ichigo is obviously being raised as a pig. No, not only Kurosaki Ichigo, but everyone present, including himself. Then, masked people, the 3 hilts have been returned to you. Goodbye. Between the words, Chin-young turned around and took a step, and disappeared in front of everyone in an instant. Damn it, how did this guy leave? Fengchao Lujiro couldn't help but say, I kept locking him with Reiatsu and suddenly disappeared. It's not a matter of speed, nor is it traveling through the space like when you came, but it's disappearing suddenly. The body seemed to melt, dissipating into a plume of black smoke. Hiroko Mako shook his head and said to Urahara Kazuki, continuing the previous topic, we will help Kurosaki Ichigo master the power of void, and you will help us repair the Zanpakudo. No problem. Outside the Urahara store, above the sky, black smoke condensed repeatedly, taking the appearance of Chin-young. He lowered his head and glanced at the broken Urahara store, and said softly to himself, hurry up and cultivate, and wait for the next harvest. Quickly, within a month, this group of people should be able to repair Bankai. Next is the Zanpakudo from the Shinigami side. Meanwhile, in another city. The city is called Naruto City, which is adjacent to Kakuza town and is located in the northwest. Affected by Deathwing last night, the city was also slightly affected, but it was much better than the tragic situation in Kakuza-cho, only a few buildings collapsed. At this moment, in Narugi City, Choihara 7 Chome, in the box of a small bar, the people of death gathered here. The King of Knights and the King of Heroes also exist together. Thanks to Captain Arthur, otherwise, Madaramu and I would have died by the mouth of that giant dragon last night. The sober head Jiro said gratefully. His upper body was covered with bandages, and he looked like he was seriously injured. That giant dragon is called Death Wing, said the King of Knights. It is one of the 3 great masters of fantasy, and its real power may even surpass that of the captain. After a pause, he added, let me tell you straight now, the organization of Dream is more complicated, not just monsters. The lowest level is cannon fodder, and the undead army carried by the Lich King was this level. Above, there are ordinary members, Ibaraki Doji, Shadow Demon, this is the level, and further up, it is the Cadre level, the Master level, the Big Master level. The General Cadre level has the combat power equivalent to the Senior Captain level. The power level is several times the strength of the Captain level, and the Master you have also seen it. The Great Master, just move his hands casually, and a city will be gone. The 3 vice captains and the 6 officers all took a deep breath. The captain of the Soul Society, in a dream, turned out to be only the level of an ordinary cadre. Too terrifying. And there are 3 great masters. What about the Overlord? Kuchiki Rukia couldn't help asking. Above this, The Night King pondered for a moment. Gilgamesh snorted coldly and said, "It's the deputy leader, and the leader, Emperor Qin." "And the deputy leader?" Everyone was shocked. "Who is it? I haven't seen it before." The King of Knights shook his head and said, "I forgot to introduce you to him. He is the King of Heroes, Gilgamesh, one of my companions. Last night, the gods of death escaped in the going boat, and they had a preliminary understanding of Gilgamesh. HMPH, when I heard the deputy leader, I was so frightened." Gilgamesh dismissed it. "You have never seen Emperor Qin make a move. In the whole dream, all the cadres are tied together, and he is not a single opponent. When an illusion world comes, it can be suppressed, and it is really hard to say if it is serious." Everyone only felt a buzzing sound in their heads and fell into a sluggishness. At this moment, there was a breeze in the private room, and then a whirlwind swirled around the table, quickly condensing a figure. "Emperor Qin." Kuchiki Rukia stood up in shock and exclaimed. "It's you. Qinyang Vivi Isho, I thought someone was calling my name, and I came here to clone myself. It turned out to be you. Long time no see, Kuchiki Rukia." Hearing this, Kuchiki Rukia trembled all over, and felt fear in her heart. Chapter 0511-Executive Department Execution. Seeing Qin Yang's sudden appearance, Kuchiki Rukia trembled and felt fear in her heart. She couldn't tell why she was so afraid of this man. Maybe it was the first time she met him. He was too impressed with her. "You," opened his mouth. Kuchiki Rukia grabbed her zanpakuto, her wrists shaking constantly, apparently not even having the courage to draw the sword. "Don't be so nervous, I'm just here to see who's calling me." Qin Yang chuckled, showing no hostility at all, but looked at the people in the private room with interest. "Night King Arthur, Hero King Gilgamesh, you have also fallen, and you have mixed up with the god of death. What are you doing here?" Gilgamesh's face was grim and his posture was alert. Everyone was terrified. This was Emperor Qin, an unimaginable powerhouse. If he wanted to kill the people here, it would only take a moment. Gilgamesh's ability to face the Qin Emperor and remain calm was quite admirable for these gods of death. He. Qin Yang smiled, and with a wave of his hand, the hilts of 12 zanpakuto flew out, and 513 threw them at the feet of everyone. "It's return to you, thank you for your contribution. Considering that it's very troublesome for you to lose the hilt, I won't make it difficult for you." This move immediately made Vivi, the god of death, startled, and really couldn't understand what Emperor Qin meant. "Give it back to us." Jiro, the head of the sparrow, said with a solemn expression, "What's your purpose? What's the use of plundering our bankai? Who knows, go back and practice hard." Qin Yang grinned and said, "Tell Yamamoto Yuanyujai, your enemy 1,000 years ago did not die. He is alive and well, and is accumulating strength, waiting for the day to make a comeback, and that day it will come soon. At that time, you don't need to wait for me to take action, and your soul world will also be in danger of extinction." He was referring to the invisible empire, hidden in the shadow of the Seraiti buildings. Reason why I say this is to put a little pressure on the Soul Society and let them speed up their repairs to Bankai so that they can harvest the second wave. Hearing this, Jiro, the head of the sparrow, fell into silence. Others may not know, but he does know something about what happened 1,000 years ago. But hearing this from the enemy's mouth is hard to guarantee. However, considering the identity and strength of Emperor Qin, there is no need for a strong man of this level to lie in such a place, and the authenticity is probably higher. "I see, I'll report to the captain," Sparrow Minister Jiro whispered. Hearing this, Qin Yang nodded in satisfaction, then looked at Rukia Kuchiki jokingly. "You don't have to be so afraid of me, I won't do anything to you. Of course, don't call me by my title in the future, otherwise, even if I'm separated by a world, I can feel it. Oh." As he said that, he waved his hand, and his body disintegrated into repeated breezes, rolling up the tissues on the table and flying. So, goodbye, the gods of death, and the two legendary kings. Before disappearing, Chin-Yong glanced deeply at the private room next door. Meanwhile, on the other side, a blond boy wearing a black peaked cap, black trench coat, trousers, and a white scarf, his complexion changed, and he murmured in shock. "You found me. What's the matter, Shui Shu?" On the sofa in the private room, a gentle and handsome young man closed the book and asked softly. "There is a god of death next door," the blond boy whispered. "Let's go quickly. I sensed the fluctuation of the spiritual pressure just now, so I spied on the situation next door, but I didn't expect to be discovered. Obviously I didn't use any abilities, just I used an electronic probe. Using technology, not supernatural abilities, the results are still perceived." For a moment, the man saw at a glance that even though he was separated by a wall, he still felt like his heart was about to stop beating, as if a sheep was being stared at by a lion, and his body was so frightened that he couldn't move. It was not until the person disappeared that he regained the ability to think and act. "That's a warning, a naked warning," the boy named Shueishu said in a panic. "Tsukishima, let's go quickly and go back to the executive department." "Since you say so, then go back." The Sven youth nodded and got up immediately. At the same time, Aiz Naneo, the vice captain of the 8th Division, suddenly shot, and slapped it with a palm. Immediately, the crimson spiritual energy gathered, turned into a cannonball, and hit the adjacent private room. Boom! The thin wall was torn apart in an instant, but after it was opened, there was no one. "What's wrong?" Suddenly crazy, Hisagi Shubing was speechless for a while. Looking at the mess, he couldn't help but say. "No, just before Emperor Qin left, I glanced over here. I thought someone was there." Aiz Naneo frowned slightly. "My intuition is more sensitive, and I always felt that someone was spying on us just now." "You think too much." King of Knights waved his hand and said, "Find a place to cultivate for a while, and when Madaramu Sansi wakes up, we will return to the Soul Realm." "Yes, Captain Arthur." Kakuza-cho, over the cathedral. Chin-Yong slowly opened his eyes, and he took back a single thought. Anyone from the executive department? Thinking back on the atmosphere in the private room next door, Chin-Yong couldn't help Isho, and said, "I didn't expect this group of people to be hiding in Mingmu City. Also, their base camp is indeed in that city." Executive Department, a mysterious organization whose members are psychic people like Tito Taihu and Inoue Orihime, who are human, but who have mastered supernatural power because they were invaded by virtual power when they were young. The number of people seems to be only 6 or 7, which is not worth mentioning. Therefore, Chin-Yong was too lazy to pay attention to this group of people. The first wave of harvesting has come to an end. Next, we can only wait for the gods of death to repair Bankai. Shaking his head, Chin-Yong said helplessly, "Compared to the devil fruits in the pirate world, although there are many types of mysterious powers in this world, it is a little more troublesome to put them away. Among the gods of death, there are only so many people who can Bankai. There are not many spiritual bows of Quincy Exterminator. Only the virtual, after the purification of collapsing jade, can quickly collect magic jade. At present, in Aizen's hands, there are still about 15 magic jades, and they will continue to increase in the future. Of course, the collection of these mysterious powers is not a problem. In contrast, star rating restriction is Chin Yang's current headache. The virtual circle, the virtual night palace. In an empty hall, Aizen was sitting on the throne with a gentle smile, looking at the 9 broken faces and 10 blades on both sides below. At this moment, Wulkiora walked in, with a little girl behind him. "Aizen-sama." Wulkiora Vivi bowed, saluted respectfully, and said, "What you ordered has been done." "You are doing well, Wulkiora." Vivi Isho Phantom Body Blue-Dyed, looked at the little girl with a look of fear in her eyes, and said with a smile, "Welcome back, Nelly L. du Odyssey Vank." Chapter 0512-Commander, Nailu. "Welcome back, former 30 Blades, Nelly L. du Odyssey Vank." Aizen looked at the little girl and spoke softly. The little girl has lake green hair, golden green eyes, a rose-colored horizontal pattern on her face, a scar on her forehead extending to the right side of her nose, and a ragged skull mask covering her head. This little girl used to be the 30th blade, but she was plotted against her mask, her stature became smaller, and she was expelled from the Zai Palace. After Wanshan Aizen came back from the Soul Realm, he asked Ulquiorra to look for her as soon as possible. After 5 days, he finally brought her back. At this moment, Xiao Nilu looked at the ferocious 10 blades and Aizen on the seat in fear. Not only did she lose her strength, she also lost her memory. Lord Lan, Aizen, Xiao Nilu said cautiously, slightly panicked. Aizen's name is known to the entire virtual circle, and even if she loses her memory, Nilu still remembers the entire name. Seeing her appearance, the rest of the 10 blades were very calm, and many people had already recognized them. After all, it was the 30th blade of the past. Even if the appearance has changed greatly, the spiritual pressure will not change, and it is easy to identify. Only Nutra stared at Xiao Nilu with an ugly expression, her expression gloomy. Lord Aizen, he said coldly, what's the point of finding this woman now? She has lost her strength, and sadly, she doesn't even remember who she is. Like this plant garbage, throw it away in the desert, and let her fend for itself. Quote. Hearing this, Xiao Nilu's frightened body trembled, and she glanced at him in horror. He. Aizen slowly got up from the throne, walked to the edge of the high platform, looked at Nilu a few times, and then said. Nutra, among the current broken faces, there are only 5 people who came from the Wastode class, big virtual break face. They are Stark, Balagang, Halibal, Nilu, and Ulquiorra. You don't seem to be among them. Hearing this, Nutra's complexion changed slightly, and he felt resentment in his heart. However, he dared not show it. You were the one who plotted against Nilu back then. Aizen said again, however, don't worry, I don't care about the past. Don't make mistakes in the future, do you understand? As soon as the voice fell, in an instant, from Aizen's body, a super spiritual pressure appeared, and its intensity was like reality. In an instant, Nutra's face turned pale, and he fell to his knees with a thud. He was dripping with cold sweat, holding the palm of the ground, his fingernails deeply into the rock wall. Hold, sorry, Aizen-sama. He was rebellious, but in the face of the huge gap in strength, he could only bow his head. Seeing this, the rest of the 10 blades shook their heads secretly. Master Aizen was stronger than before. He suppressed Nutra with spiritual pressure without revealing any trace of it. If you understand, then back off. Aizen said lightly. Hearing this, many 10 blades immediately nodded and left. Soon, in the entire hall, only Nilu was left. Seeing Aizen walking towards her, Nilu was so frightened that her lips were trembling. Don't be afraid. Aizen walked to the other side. Vivi squatted down, raised her hand and pressed it on top of Nilu's head at the same time. At the same time, he unbuttoned the front of his shirt, revealing his well-covered chest, only to see a gem that shines like rain on his chest, exuding a strange brilliance. You used to be Vastord, and you went through the face-breaking process, but at that time, the face-breaking technology was not very mature. Now, I will treat your injuries, restore your strength, and fully develop your potential. The process is a little dangerous, you don't want to die. Aizen said in a low voice, while calling on the power of Bengu. A pain in her head, and her whole body began to tremble unconsciously. Ah! She screamed, and the power in her body seemed to explode, and under this power, her head injury was rapidly recovering. Not only that, but her memories are also emerging. Suddenly, boom! A huge spiritual pressure enveloped the Zai Palace in an instant. The 10 blades that had just left the hall changed their expressions. What a strong Reiatsu! It's Nilu. The former Nilu is back. The 80-blade Sar Apollo couldn't help but said, Nutla, ask for your own blessings. That woman is not easy to deal with. At the beginning, Nutra plotted against Nilu, and he also helped, but he would definitely not be found in the search for revenge. Hearing this, Nutra looked gloomy, snorted coldly, and turned away. Watching everything calmly, Ulquiorra secretly said, "Her spiritual pressure has become stronger, and at its peak, it can be comparable to my second stage return blade. Master Aizen has given her new power. Not to mention the shattering thoughts." The huge spiritual pressure that enveloped Zai Palace lasted for a full 10 minutes before it gradually dissipated and converged. At this moment, in the main hall, Nilu's appearance has undergone great changes. She has changed from a little girl to a big beauty with a sexy body, with long lake green hair reaching her waist, her breasts becoming plump, and she holds up the broken half-clothes. She was naked with her belly button exposed and her big legs covered with sweat, apparently regaining her strength and draining her a lot of energy. Ha 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 ha. While breathing lightly, Nilu had a happy expression on her face, and immediately knelt down on one knee and said respectfully, "Thank you, Aizen-sama." "Get up." Wanshin Aizen nodded in satisfaction and said with a light smile, "Again, welcome back, Nilu." "Yes." Nilu's voice was clear, she looked up at Aizen and kept blinking her eyes. "I haven't seen Aizen for many years, and Aizen today seems to be different than before." In her impression, Aizen is a strong and ruthless man. Today's Aizen is stronger, but has a hint of gentleness. In comparison, she prefers the current Aizen-sama. "Nello." "Yes, Aizen-sama, please tell me." After pondering for a while, Wanshi Lanran said, "The seats for the 10 blades are full, and you can't restore the position of the 30 blade, so from now on, you will follow me and serve as the commander of the Zai Palace, responsible for the daily affairs of the Zai Palace." Quote. "Yes, Aizen-sama." Nilu nodded and still didn't get up. However, she asked suspiciously, "Commander, isn't Ichimaru-sama?" He. Aizen couldn't help laughing. "Exactly, if you are interested, you can go and see for yourself in this world. By the way, give these to a person in Kusa town." As he spoke, he flicked his fingers, and immediately, 15 magic jades flew out in a swish. Nilu blinked and caught Wanyu. "Lord Aizen, who do you give it to?" "Emperor Qin." Hanshin Lanran said calmly, "Most of the 10 blades today are afraid of his power rather than sincere submission, but Nilu is different. This woman is grateful, innocent and kind, but she is a relatively good subordinate candidate. Of course, in addition to her, there is also Ulquiorra. At present, there are only these 2 people who can be trusted a little and are worth cultivating as prospective dream members. Go ahead and bring something to him." Chapter 0513_show your hand. Nilu left. She obeyed Wanshin Lanyan's instructions, left the virtual circle, went to the world, and brought things to a person named Qin Emperor. Watching her leave the hall, Wanshin Aizen shook his head and sat back on the throne. "If you want to be a dream member, you still need to be tested." He whispered to himself, then looked down at his chest. At the chest, Benyu is merging with him. Similar to the situation of the original Blue Dye Fusion Benyu, he also encountered similar problems in the process of fusion. This question may be nothing to others, but to him, it is a bit of a headache. In the original book, Aizen merged with collapsing jade and went through 5 stages, and, as it went on, the human figure disappeared and turned into a monster. This is obviously a failed fusion. Of course, this is not the case with Mianthan Aizen. He does not pursue the speed of fusion, so the progress of fusion seems to be relatively slow. According to my calculations, I am afraid that my integration will need to go through 3 stages. It is currently in the first stage and is about to be completed. At his Zanpakudo, Kyoka Suiyu was getting weaker and weaker, and the sword would disappear completely within a few days. This is the first stage, Zanpakudo fusion. The shape of the blade is no longer needed, and its ability will become part of the illusion of Aizen. It's just the first form. My power has far surpassed the past, completely breaking the boundary between the god of death and the void. After the 3rd form is completed, I can break the star restriction. Thinking of this, Aizen slowly closed his eyes, immersed his mind on the collapsed jade, and continued to integrate. In the present world, Kakuzucho. In a ruined, silent commercial street, a black voice suddenly opened, and then Nailu walked out slowly. Is this really Kakuzucho? The world is so desolate. Nailu murmured in surprise, Emperor Qin, we need to find this person. According to Aizen-sama, this person is in Kakuzucho. Between the words, she closed her eyes and launched a Reiatsu search. In the darkness, wisps of soul flames were born, not many in number, roughly divided into several directions. In one of them, there are more than a dozen souls, and each of them is not weak. Nailu thought about it and was about to ask this group of people for directions. At this moment, she let out a suspicious sound. There is a place that cannot be probed. She looked curiously in the direction of the cathedral, hesitated a little, and walked over immediately. It didn't take long before she reached her destination. It was an abandoned cathedral that was out of tune with the surroundings. The whole church was covered with ice, and the space was slightly distorted. This is because the mutation caused by Shui Sheng's promotion to 5 stars has not subsided for the time being. Nailu was secretly surprised. Has anyone here fought a battle? The battle caused space distortion. Just as he was thinking, a voice came over. Aizen brought you here. Nailu was taken aback and immediately put on a defensive posture. Come in. The voice came again, with a vague tone, and it was impossible to tell where it came from. Nailu hesitated for a while, and then she walked in bravely. As soon as she entered the church, she saw a young man sitting on the railing on the second floor. He was handsome in appearance, in his early 20s, with short black hair and a long snow-white coat. Aizen asked you to come. Qin Yang asked knowingly. You are. I am Emperor Qin. Hearing this, Nailu was secretly shocked. Master Qin Di, Master Aizen asked me to give this to you. Saying that, she threw 15 magic jades. At the same time, she asked, excuse me, what is the relationship between Lord Qin and Lord Lanran? Do you really want to know? Qin Yang chuckled and grabbed the 15 magic jades. It's okay to tell you. The Aizen-sama in your mouth is not the Aizen Soyusuke you know. It's my dreamy deputy leader. Nailu was confused. Dream. Deputy leader. You will naturally know in the future. Emperor Qin was too lazy to explain. He told Nailu this just to give the other party a psychological preparation. As for whether it would be revealed, he was not worried at all. With Nailu's character, he would not talk nonsense everywhere. Fantasy will eventually leave this world, so sooner or later, local members will be accepted. At that time, after this world becomes the next generation of the fantasy world, people will still need to manage it. Nailu is now just a subject to be seen, and of course, Ulquiorra too. For the sake of the magic jade you brought me, I can answer you one more question. Qin Yang said again. Hearing this, Nailu thought for a while and said, I want to know, what Lord Qindi just said, about another blue dye. If you go to the northeast, you will naturally find the result. Qin Yang gently isho, and immediately flicked his fingers. Immediately, a holy light shot out, and instantly disappeared into Nailu's body. Nailu was stunned and touched her chest subconsciously. This power will save your life at a critical moment. Let's go. Qin Yang stretched out his hand and grabbed it from the air. In an instant, the space shifted and the scene changed. When Nailu regained her composure, she was shocked to find that she had appeared on the previous street. What a terrifying person you can turn the space around at your fingertips. Aizen-sama can't do such a thing. Nailu's heart was beating violently, and it took a while to calm down. He said just now that Aizen-sama is the deputy leader of the dream, so is he the leader. What is the dream? With doubts in mind, Nailu headed northeast. 423. Not to mention the current situation, the Soul World. Sarote, the headquarters of the Gote 13 team, the captain's meeting. After the Night King returned with the team, he reported the general situation. The above is the specific situation of the destruction of Kakuzucho. Is it just a farce of a giant dragon? Yamamoto Yuanyuji has a heavy heart, and the three great masters, this is another sad piece of information. Just a casual activity caused this kind of disaster that destroyed the city. The title of the world-destroying dragon is truly worthy of the name. Mewu Wangyu suddenly walked in and saw that everyone was looking at him, and immediately said, "The existence of our Zero team is not a secret now. I won't introduce more. As long as you know, it is enough to have 2 pieces of knife god, Wang Yu." "What's the matter?" Yamamoto Yuanyuji asked. "Convey the will of the Spirit King." Earnestly, glanced at the captains, and said, "First, repair your Zanpakuto and let you repair it back to Bankai." Pause, he sighed. "Second, Monkai knows all Zanpakuto's real names. We in the Soul Realm need more death gods to reach Bankai." Having said that, he looked at the King of Knights. "Captain Arthur, we welcome you to join us." Chapter 0514 The First Autonomous Star. "Captain Arthur, you are welcome to join us." The 2 kings of the house, Yuchong, nodded to the King of Knights, and said, "The last dream invasion was that you saved the head of the army, Ikibe. For this, we are very grateful to you. You, welcome." The King of Knights waved his hand, not caring. In fact, without his help, even the soldier's main body, a soldier, can't die. Even if the guy's body is torn apart, as long as he shouts the opponent's name, the opponent can be resurrected and restored through the name. "Okay, no more gossip." Mewu Wangyu nodded and said, "We will go to Lingwang Palace immediately to receive restorative training. King of Knights, come with you, it will be good for you too." Next, everyone discussed the specific itinerary. Bankai in the 13th team of Gote. In addition to all the captains, there are also 2 vice-captains, Renji Asanjing and Minister Jiro, as well as the corner of the 3 seats of the 11th team. In the end, Yamamoto Yuanyuji decided to guard the Lingting, and everyone else went to the Lingwang Palace for treatment. Of course, because he didn't know Bankai, Kenpachi Zaraki originally wanted to stay, but Wang Yu still took him with him. The so-called Spirit King Palace, although it is also a part of the Soul Realm, is in another dimension. 72 barriers between Lingwang Palace and Seorite. Under the leadership of the 2 House Wangyu, everyone climbed on the Tianju chariot, and used a cannon to shoot it into the sky. Boom! After the explosion, the Tianju ran quickly climbed to the height, and the King of Knights and others on it quickly felt the existence of the barrier. As if it had penetrated a thin film, a special force swept across the bodies of everyone. This situation lasted 72 times. After passing through all the barriers, everyone's eyes lit up, and they saw huge floating platforms. The number of platforms is 5. Above each circular platform is a town, and above the 5 platforms is a 4-story building in the shape of a bell tower. That's the Lingwang Dane Li, which is the main hall of the Lingwang Palace. There is no permission to enter that place. Mewu Wangyu explained, and then nodded to the crowd, "Let's go, we're here." Saying that, he jumped off the Tianju carriage. The crowd followed and landed on a fan-shaped object suspended in midair. This fan-shaped platform had tall pillars standing on both sides, just like the Tianju chariot. The King of Knights walked at the end, and Vivi narrowed his eyes, looking at the interior of the Spirit King from a distance. Magic, scan, search for the origin of the world. Scanning is over. Fantasy Jean's voice sounded, the source power of the world has not been found. Huh, isn't it here? Night King Vivi was startled. No, maybe closer. This place is much bigger than it looks. Hearing this, the King of Knights was silent for a while, without saying anything, and jumped down after the crowd. As soon as he landed, a heavy spiritual pressure hit him. Asanjing Renji's expression changed even more, and he couldn't help gasping for breath. The spiritual pressure concentration here is several times that of the soul world. It's like swimming in the sea. This is not a certain captain-level death god bursting out his own Reiatsu, but the environment is like this. Its spiritual pressure concentration is more than 3 times that of the corpse soul world. Moreover, this is the periphery. The deeper you go, the higher the spiritual pressure concentration. Suddenly, the King of Knights Vivi was startled. He felt his star, as if he was about to break through. This is the same feeling as when the star was promoted. The surrounding spiritual power is rushing towards him quickly. Immediately, he sat down with his knees crossed and absorbed these spiritual powers seriously. This change immediately caught everyone's attention. Captain Arthur. Asanjing Renji was stunned. Don't disturb him, he seems to be breaking through. Ermelu Wangyu gave him a surprised look and said, it's rare, most of the gods of death will have difficulty breathing when they first come here. I didn't expect him to be used to it. Very soon, and the first time I entered the state of cultivation. Quote. Shaking his head, he greeted everyone, come with me, I will take you to the Qilin Hall of the Tangquan Ghost. His hot spring can quickly heal your past wounds. What about Captain Arthur? He'll be entertained later. We'll just go first. Ermelu Wangyu scratched her head. Don't have so many problems, just follow me honestly. Immediately, the group left Lingwang Amadasanda and headed towards the depths of Lingwang Palace. The King of Knights stayed where he was. He knew what was happening outside, but he was too lazy to answer. Now, he has broken through 3 stars and reached 4 stars. The surrounding spiritual power, like a vortex, quickly gathered above his head and poured into his body frantically. This is the first one among all Qin Yang's phantoms, without relying on mystical powers, and self-improving the phantom body. Although there is not much difference between the 4-star Night King and the 3-star Night King for Qin Yang, they are of great significance. This shows that, without relying on mysterious power, the phantom body can also ascend to the star on its own. Of course, the time spent is not short, and there are many objective conditions. Maybe, this is also a way to break through the star restriction. The Night King thought to himself. The King of Knights and King of Heroes are all suitable for the spiritual power of the Soul Society, so they can be cultivated and improved. And the Holy Archangel, as long as he absorbs the power of faith, I am afraid that he can break through the 5-star limit. In the same way, blue dyeing and collapsing jade can also surpass 5 stars. Each phantom body has a different method to break through its own star restrictions. Qin Yang felt a sense of enlightenment. He used to want to find a panacea that could be applied to all phantom bodies, but at present, this was wrong. Very well, this trip is not in vain. Next, just enter the Spirit King's interior and confirm the origin of the world. Thinking of this, the King of Knights slowly opened his eyes, and at the same time, the change of ability information also appeared in his mind. 5th change, King of Knights Old Sword. Star rating. Ability 1, Wind King Enchantment. Ability 2, Super Intuitive. Ability 3, The Sword of Oath of Victory. Ability 4, A Distant Ideal Hometown. Ability 5, Unlocked. Before he could study the new abilities carefully, the King of Knights saw a glamorous woman with bangs on her side, black mid-length hair and a shawl, wearing a white shawl, with a graceful and luxurious appearance. It seems that your constitution is very suitable for Lingwang Palace. Maru gently Isho said, please come with the concubine, Captain Arthur, the concubine will make a Death Tyrant outfit, for you alone. Hearing this, the Night King in a good mood also got up with a smile. It's an honor. However, I heard that you need to take off all your clothes when you make a Death Tyrant costume. It doesn't seem good for us to be alone. Chapter-501-520-Inheritance of Kenpachi. Shutara Chinshumaru, the person who created the Death Tyrant costume, when she made the Death Tyrant costume for others, she needed the other party to be naked. Of course, the King of Knights is not because of shyness, but when all defenses are removed, if the opponent attacks, he may be subdued in an instant. After hearing his words, Shutara Chinshumaru covered his mouth and smiled coquettishly. I didn't expect the legendary King of Britain to be shy because of such a thing. In response to this, the King of Knights remained calm, and after sizing it up, He chuckled. No, it's nothing. Let's go, Orimamoru, lead the way. Please follow the concubine. Immediately, Shutara Senjumaru turned around and left. She flew with her feet 10 centimeters off the ground, walking silently. Captain Arthur, you have dealt with Dream a lot, and you know them quite well. My concubine is very curious. As an enemy, why didn't Dream kill you? With their strength, it can be done. With the power of the King of Knights, it is not comparable to the ocean lords that have appeared before, not even the lords, let alone the great lords. But Dream had no intention of dealing with the King of Knights. The answer to this question is clear to you. 607 Calmly. I attacked the Soul World twice, and Dream didn't kill any of the captains. Ori Mori, why do you think they did this? Without waiting for the other party to answer, the King of Knights continued, it's like a hen laying eggs. Which breeder would kill the old hen after harvesting the eggs? Considering that the other party is not Chinese, he does not necessarily know the meaning of, kill the chicken to get the eggs, so he had to put it in simple words. After hearing this, Shutara Chinshumaru was stunned and said with a chuckle, that's right. We're here. Between the words, the two had come to the city gate of a floating platform. On the side of the tall city gate, on the stone tablet, the 3 characters, Shira Hall, are inscribed. The next moment, several black shadows suddenly appeared, then knelt down on one knee and shouted respectfully, Palace Master. These shadows were wearing alternative Death Tyrant outfits, which were not as loose as the Death Tyrant outfits of the guards of the 13th team, but more like tights. Not only that, there is a black mask on his head, gloomy, like Xingjun. Go back, it's none of your business here. Shutara Chinshumaru waved his hand, drank a few people back, and then said, Captain Arthur, come with me. What are these? The King of Knights followed and asked casually, it's not an ordinary god of death, to be precise, it's not like a natural soul. That's the magic soldier. After the simple answer, Shutara Senjumaru stopped talking. Square root is greater than or equal to underscore. To enter the Shira Palace, they entered a room covered with long cloth. Tilde caret. Boom. The door of the room slammed shut, and in the entire room, only the 2 kings of knights were left. Tilde. Take it off. Shutara Chinshumaru Vivi Isho said, or do you need a concubine to help you? He. The King of Knights laughed twice, without talking nonsense, and immediately began to undress. His current Death Tyrant outfit is standard, and it is no different from other death gods. The original armor and cloak have already been put away. You're interested in my body by staring at me so unblinkingly. Of Knights took off his clothes and opened his mouth. Yes, concubine is very curious about your body. Shutara Senjumaru Vivi narrowed his eyes and carefully looked at the Night King Jingzhuang's body. Your body is completely different from our death god's body. No, it's not completely different, it's just similar, but the complexity of the structure is far more than that. Quote. It's like 2 instruments, with similar functions, but very different structures. In contrast, the body of death is more like a product of a backward era. The King of Knights was very calm, and after taking off all his clothes, he said slowly, my body is called, the body of a hero. After a pause, he said solemnly, let's start quickly. Appreciating male bodybuilding is a kind of enjoyment, maybe for you, but please don't waste your time. Hearing this, Shutara Chinshumaru couldn't help Isho and said, then let's start. Not to mention the episode between the King of Knights and Orimamoru. In the Qilin Hall, the gods of death brought by Wang Yu of Ermeu were all arranged in a hot spring. Named Tingquan Ghost, the hot spring of Tenshiro in Kirin Temple has a strong healing effect. However, when everyone was shooting the hot springs, there were 3 captains, but they were not listed. On another disc, there is a cliff, and at the end of the cliff is a small wooden house. In front of the cabin, there are 3 people standing, Uno Hanaritsu, Zaragi Kenpachi, and Kiraku Chunsui. This is my Phoenix Palace, what? You want to say it's shabby? Tu Wang Yu pushed open the door of the cabin, and immediately, the dark space behind it was immediately revealed to the eyes of the three of them. In the darkness, one after another, a genderless person punched lightly, revealing a ferocious look. These are the strongest Zanpakuto, with shallow strikes that can change into any form. Ermelu Wang Yu continued. I made any shallow strikes in the soul world, so are the three Zanpakuto of the three of you, and even the Zanpakuto of Team Zero. Hearing this, Jingle Chunchui let out a sigh of relief. There is no need to explain, let's start quickly. That's true. Ermelu Wang Yu raised her eyebrows and said in a low voice, why did you call the three of you alone, and the reason is clear to you. Especially you Captain Ujua. No, the first-generation Sword 8. Yes. Mao Shawali's eyes were downcast, and he said calmly, it was my fault that I didn't pass on the name of Janba back then. Today, I will truly pass on this name. Have you made up your mind? Jingle Chunchui rubbed his brows. Although it's what old man Shan meant, once the two of you fight, there will be only one person who will survive. It's my sin. Ujawali spoke calmly and walked towards the hut. Each era, only one Kenpachi is allowed to exist, but T's is an inheritance. In the face of dreams, compared to a few more death gods who have reached Benkai, a stronger Kenpachi is more important. As she said that, she had already walked to the door, and as she stepped out, she turned her head to look at Kenpachi Zakagi. Captain Zaraki, hold your sword tightly and come with me. Seeing this, Zaragi Kenpachi Vivi frowned. No wonder you want to bring me to the spirit palace, is that what you mean? Saying that, he grinned Isho. If you lose, you are a sinner, or you will die. If you win, if you cut your opponent, you are Kenpachi. It's not bad. The scar on the corner of my eye is aching. As soon as the voice fell, he rushed in without hesitation. The two entered the cabin one after another. It was a dark and spacious space, and countless shallow beetings, like jackals, were eyeing the two uninvited guests. Who will survive? Jingle Chunchui sighed. Does it still work? Ermelu Wang Yu's eyes were indifferent. The one who died, of course, is the flower of Mao. Chapter 0516 You are already ours, 1. Ah, the dead protagonist can be resurrected at will, that's how Ho-Oh's power is. Shira Temple. The King of Knights has obtained a brand new Death Tyrant outfit, which is slightly different from the normal Death Tyrant outfit. The cuffs, exposed legs, etc. have been refined, making this set of clothes more suitable for battle. Are you making a set for me on purpose? It's just a change in appearance. The King of Knights looked at his clothes, and inserted the 12 Knights of the Round Table and the Sword of Victory October back into his waist. It's more similar to the black tights of those magic soldiers. Dorasho, you took a lot of trouble to make it for me. It's not just what it looks like on the surface. Of course. A faint Isho, this set of Death Tyrants is based on your spiritual pressure and is specially made for you. In addition to the ability of ordinary Death Tyrants, it is the most unique point. Yes, super defensive power, super flexibility, and even if it is damaged, as long as it absorbs your Reiatsu, it will quickly heal itself. That's really convenient clothes. King of Knights secretly said, it can absorb my spiritual pressure and repair itself, which means that this piece of clothing will not be easily damaged. And the super defensive power also means that once this piece of clothing wants to strangle me, it will be extremely difficult to be damaged. Quote. He was sure that Shutara Chinchumaru must have moved his hands and feet in this Death Tyrant outfit. He could also guess the reason for doing so. After all, he was a character of unknown origin, and he became the captain and Team Zero. It is also reasonable to want to guard against one hand. It's like a badge given to the agent of the God of Death, and a monitor is installed inside it. This is not a big problem. The King of Knights is more concerned about whether Team Zero suspects him. Of course, it is nothing to be suspicious. Even if there is a trace of suspicion, everyone will not turn their face until there is no definite evidence. After all, as the captain of the 5th Division, he is a precious combat power in the Soul Society. Thinking of this, the King of Knights immediately smiled and said, "That's really thanks to Diori Show." "You're welcome, concubine should do. You are now the only captain of the Gote 13 who can be Bankai." Shutara Chinchumaru smiled and said, "Okay, the task on the concubine's side has been completed, divine soldier." She shouted, and suddenly, the magic soldier who had seen it outside once, wearing a black tight-fitting Death Tyrant suit and a black mask, walked in. "Hall Master. Take Captain Arthur to the Black and White Hall." "Yes." Shenbing nodded and said, "Captain Arthur, please come with me." Hearing this, Arthur nodded to Shutara Senjumaru and immediately followed. Watching the two come to drive, Shutara Chinchumaru also sighed. Vivi, what a man with a keen sense of smell. He should have noticed the hands and feet of his concubine. I really hope that it will not be used one day. After leaving the Shira Palace, under the leadership of the divine soldier, the King of Knights came to the border of the disc, on a platform. In the center of the platform, there is a small raised disc. Divine soldier pointed to the disc and said, "Captain Arthur, stand on it, stimulate your spiritual power, and it will bounce you to the Black and White Hall of the Lord of the Soldier Department. Then, I will say goodbye." After saying that, he turned around and left. "I see, thank you," the King of Knights said, and was about to give it a try. Suddenly, in his perception, two spiritual pressures collided. It was obviously a Reiatsu above the captain level. Although the distance was far away, the King of Knights was still keenly aware of it after reaching the 4-star level. This is the Reiatsu of Karatsu Uno and Kenpachi Zaraki. He was stunned, and looked sideways at the Otherling family hall in the distance. That's the Phoenix Hall of the two Wawangyu. Are these two people going to carry on the inheritance of swordsmanship? It was obvious that two spiritual pressures were colliding, and it was extremely intense, like a life and death struggle. Apart from the inheritance of Kenpachi, the King of Knights couldn't think of any reason why the two would fight. "Looks like Unohana is going to die." Shaking his head, the King of Knights murmured rather speechlessly, "It's really inhumane. In order to achieve a more potential Zanaki Kenpachi, did you choose to abandon the Unohanagi who has reached the limit of the God of Death? Since you Soul Realm know, then I'll be welcome to wait for the dream." The limit of each God of Death is different. Even if the potential is developed to the end and the limit of God of Death is reached, the combat power displayed by each God of Death is also high and low. Compared with Zengi Kenpachi, Ujawali is obviously stronger than Zengi Kenpachi. However, this woman used to be very vicious and evil, and she wanted to be subdued, but fortunately, just wait for her to die once. Thinking of this, the Night King resolutely stepped on the raised round platform, and then stimulated his spiritual power. Boom! With a loud bang, the round platform suddenly ejected, pushing the King of Knights towards the direction of the Black and White Temple. At the same time, at the feet of the King of Knights, a plume of black smoke suddenly overflowed, heading towards the Phoenix Palace. In the Phoenix Hall, outside the small wooden house, Wang Yu and Jingle Chunchui had solemn expressions on their faces. The battle between the two generations of Kenpachi, the leaked spiritual pressure, even my Phoenix Palace could not completely block it. A little careless, should choose a more hidden place. To House Wang Yu whispered. The so-called Phoenix Hall is a small broken house. Although there is another space inside, it is still not enough to block the fluctuation of the spiritual pressure of the battle. Are you talking about the lowest level of the central underground prison in Seorit, Wujian? Jingle Chunchui shook his head. It's unnecessary. I can't hide it. It won't take long for everyone to know it, and it's pointless to hide it. Now, let's watch it. When the two of them were silent and focused on the battle, a wisp of black smoke was hidden in the shadow of the thatched cottage. The shadow demon looked at everything coldly, observing the battle between Unohanalai and Zaragi Kenpachi. The battle continued for a long time, and it was obvious that Ujawali had the upper hand. However, the knocked-down Zanaki Kenpachi lost consciousness again and became stronger again and again, like a monster with unlimited potential, rapidly closing the gap in strength between the two. Even the shadow demon didn't know how many times Zengi Kenpachi lost. About 7 or 8 hours passed, the night began to fall, and finally, Zengi Kenpachi's sword pierced through the chest of Ujiwali and killed him. The one who won, really is Zaraki. Jinglekan pressed down on the hat, with a sullen expression. Captain Yusohana, willing to be this stepping stone, willing to be the key to unlocking the seal of Zengmujanba. Ermelu Wangyu sighed, I've known her for 2,000 years, this is the ending she chose, respect her will. Just bury her body in Lingwang Palace. Both of them sighed, feeling helpless and sad about this incident. In the small broken house, Maujawali had already fallen down, the corners of her mouth were full of blood, but with a relieved smile. Zaraki Kenpachi stood there as a whole, like a lion who had experienced a life and death struggle. In the shadows, the shadow demon pouted in disdain. The archangel can heal an injury of this magnitude, but, forget it, when she is buried in the cemetery, I will summon Ho-Oh to resurrect her. Saving her life is equivalent to giving her a new life. He. I do looking forward to the expression on the face of the resurrection. No, maybe, when the flower of the flower appears in front of the god of death as a dream, their expressions are more interesting. The shadow demon smiled playfully and quietly disappeared. Chapter 0517_ You are already ours, too. In the night of Lingwang Palace, there are no stars in the sky, only a huge full moon, hanging high in the deep space. At this moment, in the Lingwang Palace neighborhood, a suburb far away from the bustling place, there is a cemetery where the god of death is buried. Every tombstone here is engraved with the names of outstanding people in the history of the soul world. After the battle with Zergiji Enbai, Ujiwali died and was buried here by the two kings of the house. Jingle Chunchui stood in front of the tombstone, staring at the words on the stone. After a long time, he sighed, there is no grand team funeral, and even the news of your death has been temporarily concealed. Captain Ujiwa, you were once an unprecedented villain in the history of the Soul Society, but with the protection of the establishment of the Ting 13 team, you became one of the strongest first-generation captains, accompanied by Old Man Shan, and fought everywhere, making great achievements. Quote. The founder of the concept of the 11th team, the first generation of Kenpachi, and the flower of Maoji. The tombstone is inscribed with such words. Please rest in peace, Captain Zaragi will replace you and implement the word, guardian. In the whisper, Jingle Chunchui put down a bunch of flowers, then pressed the hat, turned and left. Shortly after he left, a wisp of black smoke suddenly rose from the shadows and quickly condensed into a single figure. Unexpectedly, I also have a day when I open a museum to dig up corpses. The shadow demon shook his head helplessly. He stretched out his hand and waved, and the shadow power instantly turned into a shovel, digging the earth and digging the coffin. 10 minutes later, Maoji Huli's coffin was dug out. The shadow demon opened the coffin board, and sure enough, he saw Maoji Huli lying inside. The bloodstains on his body have been washed away, and the dead Unokalai has a peaceful expression on his face, which seems to be a kind of relief after completing his duties. It's a pity, you want to die, but it's not easy. I want to resurrect you. With a chuckle, the shadow demon immediately reached out and grabbed it. Immediately, black smoke billowed, rolling up Maujawali in the coffin, and then, the shadow demon ripped apart the space and carried the body into the shadow world. After doing this, he put the coffin back and buried it in the soil, then clapped his hands and turned to leave. Bring it back to the present world first, and the Lingwang Palace can only investigate later. The shadow demon stared at the tombstone for a moment, then glanced at the inside of the Spirit King before entering the shadow space. As he stepped in, the shadow world was like a giant mouth of a monster, quickly closing and disappearing. Kylan Hall. In a comfortable room, all the gods of death who had spent a day in the hot springs gathered here. On the hospital bed, Zaragi Kenpachi lay quietly, breathing steadily. No problem, Kylan Temple Tenshiro said after making a diagnosis. When he wakes up, throw him in the hot spring for a few days and he will recover. What happened? Kimura Zojun couldn't help but ask, why did Captain Zaraki suffer such a serious injury in the Spirit King Palace? Not only him, but everyone else is also very concerned. Equals at M1. 7 inches at this time, Jingle Chunchui walked in and said solemnly, "About this matter, you will know later. Is it necessary to conceal it? Who is the enemy?" Broby frowned. "Dream has invaded the Spirit King Palace. Know when he recovers, he will naturally tell you." Jingle Chunchui shook his head. "At present, the most important thing for us is to restore Zanpakuto and restore Bankai. Rest early today." Hearing this, everyone had no choice but to put aside their doubts and leave the room to rest. Speaking of which, Captain Ujawa, Hitsugaya Toshiro suddenly said, "I haven't seen her since I arrived at Lingwang Palace. She won't practice with you for the time being." Meiwu Wangyu scratched her head and said, "Don't be so long-winded, I'll obediently go to rest, tomorrow is going to practice." This is the way of practice in the Lingwang Palace, which is similar to the following. Totally different. Last question, what about Captain Arthur? He's at the monk's place. Black and white temple. In a classical-style cool courtyard, the King of Knights sat at the corner of the stone table, quietly listening to the monk's explanation. The title given to me by Lord Spirit King is Monk of Eyes, or Monk of True Name Calling, which means calling out the real name. From the moment I was caught by the god of death, I knew everything. The real names of Shikai and Bankai of Zanpakuto. Said kindly, "Arthur, when I saw you at Seranje, I knew the real name of your Zanpakuto, your Bankai. It seems that you are only halfway through your training." "Yes, my Bankai know, including Shikai, there are 2 forms. Shikai's 2 forms, I have mastered, Bankai's second form, I'm only halfway through." "Then let me tell you, your second form Bankai, it's liberating language." In the present world, Kakuzu-cho, inside the cathedral. Chinyang sat on the railing on the 2nd floor and suddenly opened his eyes. The next moment, a wisp of black smoke floated out from his chest, and then turned into a shadow demon. Immediately afterwards, the shadow demon tore apart the space and transported Ujawali from the shadow world. Feng Wang. Chinyang let out a soft drink, and suddenly, a ray of flame burned and danced in the air, and a colorful phoenix was born during the period. Resurrection of the dead. King Ho uttered a cry, and the rainbow light suddenly cast down, and a piece of his feather, under the carrying of the rainbow light, fell on the forehead of Ujawali. Resurrection, Uno no Hana. Following Ho-Oh's call, Uno Hanaritsu, who had been dead for several hours, suddenly twitched his eyelids and slowly opened his eyes. Her eyes flickered with confusion, and she couldn't help being stunned until she saw Emperor Qin, Ying Yao and King Feng. "Dream, am I dead? I advise you to keep your mind steady." Chinyang chuckled and said, "As for your death, of course you are dead, but I'm just waiting to save you." "Resurrect me." Mao Zhawale opened his mouth, but for a while, he didn't know what to say. It's just so bizarre. Ho Wang has the power to revive the dead. Of course, she knows this information, but she is not a mortal, a human being, and she can even be rescued after death. Don't get too excited, it's a piece of cake for me and so on. Hearing this, Mao Zhawali quickly calmed down. After a moment of silence, he asked, "Why did you save me? What happened to Soul World? How long has it been since I died?" "Not long, only 100 years. Chinyang said with a playful smile. Soul World, of course, was destroyed by me, but I avenged you, you should be happy, Soul World abandoned you to complete Zhengmujanba." Hearing this, Ujawali's complexion changed slightly, and his mood was extremely complicated for a moment. According to common sense, she should draw the sword against Emperor Qin, but the other party just saved her, it is not moral to draw the sword. Admiring her tangled expression, Chinyang couldn't help but ha-ha isho, and said, "I lied to you. It's only been a few hours. In order to save you, I was waiting to go to the Lingwang Palace and stole your body. Come out." Naturally, the soul realm is also safe and sound. Quote. Deceitful. Mao Zhawali opened his mouth and looked at Chinyang stupidly. As Emperor Qin, the master of dreams, what a master, he would be so bored to make such a joke. Mao Zhawali was speechless. Don't look at me like that, and don't thank me too much. Qin Yang sneered and said with a chuckle, you should repay this life-saving grace. Mao Zhawali stared at Qin Yang and stood up slowly. Emperor Qin, I am very. You want to plant yourself. It's useless, resurrecting you alone is as easy as eating and drinking for me. It's useless for you to die 100 times in front of me. Qin Yang jumped down from the second floor, walked to Mao Zhawali, smiled and stretched out his hand. Captain Mao Jihua, no, Mao Zhawali, welcome to Join Dream. From now on, you already ours. Chapter 0518, Swordsman, Mao Zhawali. From now on, you are already ours. Qin Yang stretched out his hand and said with a smile, I'm no longer the captain of the 4th Division of the Soul Society, nor is it the first generation of Kenpachi, but as a member of our dreams, serving for us. After hearing these words, Mao Zhawali was stunned, looking at Qin Yang's outstretched right hand, wondering if he should hold it. At this moment, her mood was chaotic, and she was rarely overwhelmed. It stands to reason that she can't repay her life-saving grace, but dream and soul realm are hostile. Joining means that sooner or later, she will have to fight with her former colleagues, which makes it difficult for her to accept. A long time, she sighed. Emperor Qin, I thank you for saving me, but I can't promise to join you. I once shouldered the responsibility of guardian, and now even if I die once, I don't want to be the captain, and I don't want to do anything to them. Draw your swords towards each other. Having said that, she looked directly at Qin Yang and said, I'm willing to do anything for you, except for this. Is it 15? Qin Yang raised his eyebrows and said with a chuckle, you think too much, I have never planned to destroy the Soul Society. Now, do any of you have any death gods above the rank who died in our hands? Seeing Mao Zhawali still shaking his head, Qin Yang thought about it and changed his mind. Alright, since you think so, let's be a reserve member for the time being. Having said that, Qin Yang turned around and walked a few steps, stretched out his hand and waved, and a comfortable chair appeared immediately. He sat down, looked at Mao Zhawali, and said, you said you were willing to do anything. Yes, except to help you deal with Saratsu. Mao Zhawali let out a light breath, and immediately walked behind Qin Yang with interest, stretched out her white palm, and gently squeezed it. I have to say that her skills are very good. After all, she is the captain of the medical team and masters the returning path of medical ghosts. During the massage, the spiritual power is like a gentle finger, penetrating Qin Yang's skin and pressing on the meridians. Superior. Massaging, she asked, why did Emperor Qin save me? To your dreams, my power is insignificant. Because you are different. Qin Yang said softly, taking a nap with his eyes closed. What he said was different, meaning that Mao Zhawali was a person from this world, and the entire dream was his own phantom. Since you don't want to join as a combatant, just follow me first, be a sword attendant, and do some chores. The so-called chores, is this kind of massage. Mao Zhawali secretly said in his heart. After experiencing the initial confusion, she has completely calmed down. Since her life was saved by Emperor Qin, she has no other way out for the time being, so she will stay in a dream for now. It happened that she was very curious about the existence of dreams. Yes, opened his mouth, Mao Zhawali shouted helplessly, the wife of Emperor Qin. Carrot. Qin Yang smiled and said no more. Use this kind of little thing first to get the other party used to it, and then her mind will always change. Dream does not need to force anyone to join. Zhawali is unwilling, and he will not stop him if he wants to leave. If you like to go, go, if you want to stay, then stay. Shadow Demon. Lord Qin Emperor, what are your orders? To complete your mission. Yes. Nodding his head, the Shadow Demon glanced at Mao Zhawali, and when his thoughts moved, it immediately dissipated into black smoke. Seeing this scene, Mao Zhawali was secretly surprised. This ability to come and go without a trace is much more advanced than Shunbu. Just thinking about it, Qin Yang said. As a new member, let me tell you some of the origins of my dreams, so that you can be mentally prepared. Huh. Mao Shawali moved her ears. Her face was still as plain as water, but she was quite concerned in her heart. I'm waiting to come from. Having said that, Qin Yang pointed to the sky, a higher dimension. Not to mention how Qin Yang trained Mao Jihuali to become a qualified sword attendant. On the other hand, the palace of the King of the Spirit. Everyone in the 13th team of the Guardian was arranged to rest in the Qilin Hall. Another liberating language from Bankai, the King of Knights also left the Black and White Hall and returned to Qilin City. In an open-air hot spring room, Qin Yang took off his clothes, took a photo of his body, and stepped into the legendary hot spring that could heal a health machine. As soon as his right foot stepped into the water, he noticed that there was another person. So late, the leader of the Jing band is also very interested. The King of Knights said hello, and immediately sat down to enjoy the soaking in the medical hot spring. Captain Arthur. Jingle Chunshui chuckled, how about the Black and White Hall? Very well. Monk Eye is indeed a person who knows all real names. The King of Knights couldn't help shaking his head. All the real names means that as long as the Raya meets the standard and tells the other party Bankai's name, it is easy to become Bankai. No wonder he is the captain of Team Zero, that alone is enough. That's good. Everything goes well, it's more important than anything else. Jingle Chunshui took off the towel from his forehead and looked at the huge full moon in the sky. In the battle against the dream, you are an extremely precious fighting force. Quote. Where? I'm far worse than the leader of the Jing band. The King of Knights smiled without saying a word. The two complimented each other, and Jingle Chunshui said with a smile, actually, after dealing with Dream a few times, it is not difficult to find that the threat level of the other party is not very high, so we are in a good mood. Hot springs. Quote. Pause, he said again. In contrast, the problem of Aizen is imminent. Once the collapse of Jade is merged, we will face the Broken Mask army. Don't worry, I don't think it's going to be so smooth. King of Knights said 747 pointedly. For Aizen, another Aizen problem is more imminent. It's a really complicated relationship. The soul world has a headache for Aizen, but Aizen has a headache for another Aizen. As for the two sides that are currently fighting the most fierce, there seems to be little gunpowder between the soul realm and the dream. However, under this, there is the information brought back by Jiro, the head of the last time. The enemy of 1,000 years ago. It seems that all the bad things are concentrated in this period of time. For the Soul Society, the situation is very bad. Lingwang Palace, Lingwang Danei. On the top floor of the cocoon-like building, a spacious room is enough to accommodate tens of thousands of people. Behind a curtain that was lifted, a man without arms was frozen. At this moment, a wisp of black smoke floated out of this room and quickly condensed into the appearance of a shadow demon. The shadow demon only had 2 eyes visible, and the other members were all pitch black as ink, with black smoke constantly rising upwards. And with his appearance, the frozen male body suddenly opened his eyes. Those were a pair of very bizarre eyes, with black whites and cross-shaped pupils, as if they could see through the future and through the past. You are finally here. A voice was transmitted directly to Shadow Demon's mind. Hearing this, the Shadow Demon chuckled twice. He, Spirit King, did you foresee this scene? Chapter 0519_ Deal with the Spirit King. Ling Wang, did you foresee this scene tonight? The Shadow Demon let out a series of low smiles, looking at the man behind the curtain. No, maybe it can't be called a man, because I'm afraid the Spirit King has no gender. What is sealed by ice block, has no arms, only shuang legs, body, and a head. Kai Luo's body, its crotch, there is no male something that should be there. I've been waiting for you for a long time, Dream. In his mind, the voice of the Spirit King sounded again. Its mouth didn't move, and the sound was directly transmitted to the Shadow Demon's consciousness. Predict the future. Shadow Demon looked calm and said calmly, it's not like your abilities are already incomplete. You used to be a god-like existence, but now you have lost your arms, heart, and your strength is scattered. After that, there is only such an empty shell, without the slightest fighting power. Quote. Today's Spirit King is incomplete. His left arm, right arm, and heart have all been lost. The rest of the body is basically an empty shell, without too much power. The shadow demon can easily kill the opponent by taking a few steps forward. Are you called shadow demon? Ling Wang's face was expressionless, like a vegetable. I am the hunter of shadows, the messenger of dreams, the shadow demon. Hearing the words, the Spirit King delivered his voice again. More than a month ago, I sensed your presence and disrupted the future. In my eyes, you are a very special existence. There is no future in you, but a mystery. Huh, Shadow Demon raised his eyebrows. Mysterious characters like you. There is another Aizen Sosuke from Zai Palace, and the current 5th Division Captain, Knight King Arthur. Hearing this, the Shadow Demon smiled, as expected of the Spirit King, the stable wedge of the three realms. That's right, we all came from the same place and came across the river. He generously admitted that as for whether it came from an organization, he would definitely not tell the other party. The Spirit King didn't seem to be surprised, and still calmly conveyed his voice, is your purpose for me? Or, this world? Before Ying Yao could speak, he continued, if I can meet your Emperor Qin, maybe I'll know. What a pity, Lord Qin Emperor is not interested in seeing you. Ying Yao was too lazy to talk nonsense with him, and said in his heart, Huan, scan. Scanning is over discovering the origin of the world. Orientation, straight ahead, 6 meters away. It is indeed the King of Spirits. The Shadow Demon was stunned, not too surprised, it was just a matter of reason. This guy has no ability to resist. I can devour him now, and then build a channel with the illusion world to turn this world into a lower realm of the illusion world. After pondering, the Shadow Demon decided to start. Since they have found the origin of the world, there is no need to let it go. But, Fantasy Jean took the initiative to say that it is not recommended to do so. Huh. The origin of the Spirit King is incomplete. You can see from his appearance that his left arm, right arm, and heart are absent, including most of his power, which are scattered. Devouring an incomplete world origin, it doesn't make much sense. Do I have to collect arms and hearts first? Shadow Demon couldn't help but say, it's not a big problem, I know the whereabouts of these things. He knew where the Spirit King's right arm, the Spirit King's left arm, and the Spirit King's heart were. It's not a problem to collect, just a little troublesome. While he was thinking, the voice of the Spirit King sounded again. The purpose of your dreams, if it is me, then I can't resist, and now you can kill me. The price is that the three worlds collapse, the world, the soul world, the virtual circle, and even hell, in a very short period of time, crash. Bullshit. The Shadow Demon is disdainful in his heart, and the world will not collapse, but the island of Japan will collapse. The empty shell of the Spirit King is like a scaffold, which is the foundation of the three realms. When he dies, the three realms collapse. Just listen to the King of Spirits and say, if your purpose is this world, I think we can reach a contract. Trade, Shadow Demon said. If you think it's a deal, consider it a deal. What about the specific content? I'm curious, what chips do you have to trade with us? In this regard, the Spirit King said calmly, I am willing to give this world to you. The soul world has a history of millions of years. I have guarded the god of death for an extremely long time, and I am tired of it. I can give up the responsibility of the Spirit King. Give it to you, and you help me find my lost arms and my heart. This is kind of interesting. However, the Spirit King was obviously wrong. What the dream wanted was the origin of the world, and this world was just a gift. Of course, even if the Spirit King did not propose such a deal, the Shadow Demon would still need to collect both arms and hearts, restore the Spirit King to its integrity, and then devour its origin. As for whether the Spirit King will resist after recovery, it doesn't matter at all. With the power of the main body illusory god, it is definitely beyond the Spirit King. Even if there is a fight, the illusory realm can suppress the opponent. Great offer. Thinking of this, Yingyao immediately nodded. I will convey this proposal to Lord Qin Emperor. No accident, I will agree. Hearing this, there was a hint of surprise in King Ling's eyes. I will take back my arms and heart, and my strength will gradually recover. It seems that you are not at all afraid of me breaking the agreement. Of course, this world, which can threaten our lives, doesn't exist yet, including you, Spirit King. Shadow Demon laughed twice. You should be glad that you are called Spirit King, and not Ling Emperor, otherwise, you would have no chance to speak. Ling Wang obviously didn't care about this kind of words, and he couldn't do anything if he cared about it. There was a trace of melancholy and curiosity in his eyes. What I have to say, I have finished. I am very happy to be able to make a deal with you. His voice fluctuated slightly. You should come from another world, a higher world. Your Emperor Qin can break through the wall of the world, must be an unimaginable powerhouse. I want to ask a question. What does your world look like? Who knows? The Shadow Demon was not interested in talking nonsense with him, and immediately waved his hand, and his body began to dissipate in black smoke. Spirit King, in the last period of time, you should protect this world. Compared with us, you may have more troublesome enemies. As soon as the voice fell, the Shadow Demon had completely disappeared, as if it had never existed. The King Spirit's eyes lost their luster and gradually faded, and then slowly closed their eyes. Yuhabak. Time flies, 3 days in a blink of an eye. Within 3 days, many captain-level Shinigami repaired their Zanpakuto, but there is still a long way to go before they can be repaired back to Bankai. At the same time, in the present world, Naruto City, a large number of foreigners gathered. These people all came from hearing rumors of the Black Dragon, including reporters, adventurers, psychics, even gamblers and dead souls. A few days ago, the Black Dragon appeared, destroyed the town of Kakuza, and focused the eyes of the whole world. In just a few days, the surrounding cities of Kakuza Town, Naruto City, were already overcrowded. Somewhere in the city, in the research room of a private hospital, Aizen opened her eyes and touched her own mouth. The fusion of silver and collapsing jade has been completed. Thanks to the Black Dragon, there are so many materials gathered in this city, we can act now. Chapter 0520-Broken Army. Soul World, Spirit King Palace, Qilin Palace. In an empty practice hall, the gods of death were practicing sword meditation and slowly practicing Bankai. Everyone's Zanpakuto has been repaired, and the next thing is Bankai's problem. However, it would take a lot longer to repair Bankai, at least a month. At this moment, on top of a rock, Namori suddenly opened his eyes. He was wearing a communicator in his ear, and at this moment, there were intermittent sounds coming from the communicator. What's wrong? Discovering this change, Jingle Chunchui also opened his eyes. Hearing this, Ni Yuli coldly snorted. It's the Technology Development Bureau. In this world, multiple high-intensity surface-breaking reactions have been detected. Broken face. Everyone was surprised. Aizen. It's too fast. How long has it passed? And a large number of broken faces have begun to appear. Where? Shiro Yukitaki asked hurriedly. Near Kakuza Town, the city next door, Naruto City. Nimayuri touched his chin, the commander-in-chief's order to send a team to stop Bromian. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other in dismay, and then all looked at the King of Knights. 623. Seeing this, the King of Knights said helplessly, "Is it me again? Only you can Bankai here. If you don't have a Bankai, you will have a headache." Jingle Chunchui explained. "Captain Arthur, it's hard work for those who are capable, please do your best." It's so easy to say. King of Knights was full of slander in his heart, so he had to stand up immediately. I see, it happens that my Bankai has been fully cultivated, it is time to do some activities. Please continue to practice, I will deal with the broken face of Naruki City first. Speaking, he put away the two blades and said, however, it takes a week for normal Shunbu to return to the Soul Realm from the palace of the Spirit King. Before he could finish his words, not far away, two Wang Yu's voices came over. Don't worry, since it's an emergency, I'll lend you my Tianju chariot for the time being. It only takes 1 hour to arrive at Jingling. Hearing this, the King of Knights only shook his head. Let's go then. In the present world, Naruto City. Boom. A dark red Reiatsu shell suddenly bombarded a building. In an instant, the building collapsed, killing dozens or hundreds of mortals who had no time to escape. Ha ha ha, this is the virtual bullet. Although the destructive power is not as good as the virtual flash, the speed is 20 times that of the virtual flash. The power bestowed by Aizen-sama. MP. The fat-headed and big-eared man laughed wildly. His ears were very unique, like a big Buddha. B. Marquez, Aizen-sama's order is to find souls with spiritual senses in Nagi City and devour them. Instead of destroying them everywhere like this, it will quickly lead to death. NLT.M. Behind the big-eared man, a stern-faced teenager put his hands in his pockets and gave a stern warning. Both of them stood in the void, wearing uniform white uniforms, with a zanpakudo on their waists, and a half-empty mask on top of their heads. Compared to the last time the Black Dragon killed 3 broken faces with 1 breath, the completion of these 2 broken faces is already very close to the 10-blade level. Cut. Hearing the boy's reprimand, Marquez snorted, don't think that your number is a little higher, you can always order me. As long as I swallow a few high-quality souls, I can surpass you immediately, Kavai. Low Roses. For this kind of words, the young man called Roses didn't pay any attention to it. Suddenly, his complexion changed slightly, and his eyes swept to the collapsed building ahead. I saw inside the building, an emerald green figure, rushing out quickly, appearing in front of the two of them all at once. You just said Aizen-sama. Huh. Marquez squinted his eyes with a ferocious expression. Woman. This breath, is it a broken face? Is it the broken face of the Zai Palace? Nilu's expression was calm and her tone was cold. Why do you want to destroy the building? Ordinary human souls, no matter how much they absorb, are useless for a broken face like you. Are you killing them just for fun? Nosy. Marquez snorted angrily, looking at your appearance, it should be a broken face of Zai Palace, a group of people who betrayed Master Aizen. However, in the information of 10 blades, there is no such broken face like you. It's a pity to describe, otherwise, I can kill 1 head and 10 blades today. Having said this, he laughed wildly. Woman, it's only your bad luck. Let this uncle devour you, turn into my flesh and blood, and witness the birth of the strongest face. Listen, this uncle calls Marquez, second order of the broken face, number B1. In the roar, his figure suddenly disappeared, suddenly pulled into the distance, and appeared in front of Nilu, waving his fist at the same time, and beat him fiercely. What a fool. Roses looked indifferent, watching his partner play against Nilu with cold eyes. I can't even judge the strength of the opponent, so it is the second rank, the B rank, a kind of inferior product. Is that so? Aizen made a new toy again. Suddenly, behind him, a mocking voice sounded. Roses, complexion changed slightly, he turned around suddenly, and at the same time pulled away from him. He looked intently, only to see behind him, a death god dressed in a death tyrant outfit and a white feather woven, with his arms folded over his chest, looking at him calmly. Grim Reaper. First meeting, I'm the captain of the 5th Division, Arthur. King of Knights chuckled and said, just now you said that the big ear is the second rank, so you are the first rank. Is the rank higher than the broken face? Of course, I'm the first rank, and a Chukas came through, numbered A4. A should represent the first order, and 4 is the number. A Chukas's maturity is broken, I am afraid that it has reached the 10-blade level, and even if it can't reach it, it is very close. As expected of Aizen-sama, I don't know where I found a Chukas in such a short time. The King of Knights said speechlessly. A Chukas is a mid-level big virtual. Although it cannot be said that it is rare, it is not easy to find. However, compared to the superior Daxua Stad, it was still much easier. At this moment, Saros looked at each other with cold eyes and said, I checked the surrounding atmosphere, and it seems that you are the only one. You are too arrogant. Since you brought it to the door yourself, you will devour your soul. As he said that, a blood-red spiritual pressure flashed on his chest, and the high-concentration spiritual pressure turned into a sphere, and finally shot out suddenly. Virtual flash. Boom. The virtual flash across the sky is fleeting. The King of Knights dodged, avoiding the frontal blow. You looked down on me too much by attacking me in front of my face. The King of Knights grinned and slowly drew out his Zanpakuto. Awaken, Knights of the Round Table. Boom. A golden light suddenly radiated out, and the blade in his hand turned into the Sword of Going. On the blade, the golden light circulated. This is the Sword of the King of Kings, the First Order broken-faced little brother. You might as well guess what will happen if you get hit by it. As soon as the voice fell, the King of Knights was still approaching in an instant, and a sword swept towards the opponent's face. A sword was cut out, and the golden light flickered.